Yeah, here we are. You guys ready to go? We are in for a treat today. I'm going to wait for some people to get in the room here before I get going so that the early birds get a chance to catch the worm. I'm going to give everybody about 5 minutes to roll into here, and then you will catch the beginning. It's great to see y'all. I'm excited about today, man. We got some meat for the sandwich today. Ready. Hey, Scott, buddy, what's going on? I see you there in chat. Hey, Benjamin. Nice. Nice. Yes, spring is here, man. I'm excited. I love springtime. Love springtime. Nice. Nature Creature. There it is. Love that name. Look at you. Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Yes, Australia. I love it that I reached the Australians on Sunday morning at like freaking, I think it's like noon or something, 11. That's fantastic. You guys are in for a treat. I'm telling you. I'm telling you. I'll just tell you that this lecture and these lectures from Campbell were the turning point for me in my cancer journey. Not kidding. Turning point. Turning point. And it wasn't until I really started to become aware of who I was that I really didn't begin to understand and quote unquote resolve my hangups. Yeah, Australia. Hey, Matt, welcome back, buddy. Love that image you got for your caricature. Yeah, Clueless. Right on. Here, right there with you. We are early this week. I've got a treat. In case you didn't catch the letter I sent, if you go to my X, we've got 2 minutes here before we start. If you go to my X, I lay out what is going on. If you're in the Zoom family, then I sent you a whole letter about it. So you should be good. Hey, Jay, what is going on, man? Welcome. Still love that dog you got, man. Fantastic. Had a good chat with Stormy on Discord today. Love that we can chat outside the lines of things. Heck yeah. That's what we do here. We color outside the lines. That's what we do. Hey, Christopher, welcome. I'm telling you, you guys are in for a treat today. You guys are in for a treat. And what I did was, this is what I was going to say. It was a turning point for me when I had cancer and I found myself watching this DVD series called Mythos from Dr. Campbell. And in my personal journaling, I was writing like a madman. And one of the things that I thought while I was going through that transformative process was, man, I wish that there was a more succinct way of gathering this together. And thankfully, I was able to survive to this point. And I can now bring to you what I wish I would have had as a cancer patient, as a person fighting for my life. And so now I have the pleasure and joy of bringing to you exactly what I would have wanted when I was laying in my bed, sitting in my chair, fighting a disease, as well as in my therapies. And it was the contemplation, and it was the note-taking, and it was the understanding of these deeper insights about each of us that really was the hinge point, the fulcrum point of change. And it is so ironic that we have reached that place now in Zen. Part 2, which is what we're covering today, and I'm excited, man. I'm excited about today. Part 2, what we're covering today, is the hinge point, the fulcrum upon which the book shifts. Alan talks about that here. We'll get into it. But Alan talks about how at this point the book is going to shift and you really move from a sort of a beginning student and just beginning to understand the basics of Zen to these more advanced concepts that build upon part 1 that we spent so much time on. And so this is going to be fantastic for you guys because it's going to clarify everything for you. Okay, we're about to get started. I have a treat for you today. We are going to have a 1-hour lecture with Dr. Joseph Campbell, and he is going to be talking about Jungian psychology. And I have outlined everything for you. I have a whole presentation for you. I'm not going to be talking. It's going to be Joseph talking. And then I'll be right alongside with you here in chat as we listen to the lecture. And then if y'all got any questions or anything, you could present that afterwards or next week in Zoom when we meet. But put your thinking caps on. We're about to get rolling here. I hope you guys enjoy the lecture. Here we go.
I want this afternoon to try to present some of the main motifs in the Jungian interpretation of these matters that we've been dealing with. This seems to me to be the most useful of the modern depth psychology readings for the interpretation of mythology. I don't mean to imply anything about its usefulness in curing people of troubles and so on, in contrast to Freud. But for me, the Freudian return, no matter what mythology or mythological motif one's dealing with, to the Oedipus complex is just a little bit, let me say, tiresome. And furthermore, the reduction of highly elaborated and richly philosophized symbolic systems to the crises of infancy seems to me to be a reduction. It's a bit too radical. The Jungian psychology takes off from Freud and Adler. As Jung points out in his two essays in Individual Psychology, it's quite possible to interpret neurotic problems in terms either of the Freudian sexual or in terms of the Adlerian power system. And then he points out that actually these represent two aspects of everybody's psychological orientation. Now, I don't think I have to go through the elementary introduction to Freudian psychoanalysis for a group like this. Basically, one can say that for Freud, there is the immediate crisis after birth, you might say, of a wish or an impulse and the prohibition brought against that by the mother or father or disciplinary agent. And these prohibitions against which the wish comes are functions of the social order. They are determined by the society in which the individual exists. The parent in one society will say yes to something which in another society would receive a no. Consequently, the parent becomes the agent for the social structure, and the wish, which cannot be fulfilled, since an infant cannot sustain a tension of unfulfillment, is, as he says, pushed into the unconscious. With the wish, however, goes the prohibition, and that's the great Freudian formula: wish, prohibition. The wish then goes into the unconscious, and along with it the prohibition, so that you have a plus-minus quantum down there, and it's that tension. Every time that wish recurs from the unconscious, it carries with it the prohibition, which has been, as Freud says, introjected. It has become an operating factor in the psychological structure of this individual. Now, such an electric charge cannot be retained. It has to be projected, and it is projected on apparently innocent phenomena, and so you get the projection of the forbidden wish on some apparently innocent object, which immediately becomes infected with mana, with unrealistic energy that has no relationship to that object's actual value in life. But the object becomes then, as it were, a sacred object, radiant in a certain way, and the person's relationship to it is ambivalent and intention. Now, for Freud, these wishes are largely related to the parent. The parental images become the agents of the social system. One prohibition after another going down into the unconscious builds up what is called by religious people the conscience. And conscience is simply the interjected social taboo system. Then Freud speaks of three great stages in the genetic development of the individual psyche. The first, that of infancy, and the second, that of the period from about 5 years old to about 11, which he calls the period of latency, little boy, little girlhood. And then finally comes this crisis of puberty. In the first period, there are a number of particular traumatic moments, and I'm not going to go through these, the birth trauma, and then the business of the relationship to the mother breast, and then the business of defecation and all the interest associated with that, and then the discovery or experience of the import of the male-female relationship, and then the establishment of the Oedipus complex, which is complete by the age of 5. Then comes a period of latency, which is a period of ego testing. That is to say, the erotic factor falls into second place, and the aggressive element comes in. I once had the pleasure of teaching in a boys' prep school, and the spectacle of aggression in various manifestations was just a bit too much. Then, at the period of puberty, comes the erotic back into force again, running, however, in the old channels. By this time, the relationship to the mother is no longer oral. The main center of erotic experience has shifted to the genital zone, and at that time it's not proper, really, to have the same set of feelings to the mother as formerly. In fact, it's biologically and every other way improper. And a person who has not been able to graduate over these two thresholds remains fixated to them, so that in adult life, a member of the opposite sex always echoes father or mother images, and the attitudes established in childhood, which are improper to the present period, become occasions for great neurotic concern and agitation. In Freud, one has the feeling that if one can establish a decent marriage relationship, and after puberty and the early stages of youth, that's about all the problems you have, and you're set. He actually says to certain of his, well, there is a paper in which he was writing for a young psychiatrist, after the age of 35, there's no point in trying to psychoanalyze anybody. You have to take him too much apart, and so he'd be lying all over the floor like a dismembered automobile. And Freud is counting on the present energy to reconstruct the parts which he takes apart, and if that energy isn't there, all you've got is a dismembered organism. On the other hand, for Jung, it is precisely the crises after 35 that are most interesting. When you come to Adler, the first heretic in the Freudian school of dogma, it is not this sex or erotic principle that is regarded as the dominant, but the will to power. And as he points out, the obstacle that the infant meets is not so much the prohibition of the parent as his own puny impotence to realize what he wants. And so that same thing of wish and failure to realize it is translated into a power failure instead of a collision with a parental image. Now, if the parents are not helpful to the child and tend to keep him in the situation of inability to realize what he wants, you get an excessive sense of impotence, which leads to a counter intention, which he calls overcompensation. This is the inferiority complex, a compulsion throughout life to prove oneself because one has been given the sense in early life that one is unable to do what one wants to do. And then every field of endeavor, no matter what it is, sex or anything else, becomes a field for testing and proving oneself. So the one's continually saying, how am I doing? How am I doing? How am I doing? Now, from Jung's standpoint, the psychological energy shows itself in both directions. And a person who has been frustrated excessively will then be pitched excessively strongly in this area of concern, and the actual ability to experience the delights of the various modes of love for the world and nature and everything else will be in suppression, so to say. A person who is oriented primarily to the power complex, Jung calls an introvert. That's his primary sense for the word introversion. He is always asking, how am I doing? And in this sense, the introvert may be a very outgoing person, apparently, but he's active in the outer field only to prove himself. This, in the Kundalini system that I was talking about the other day, is the attitude of the third chakra, the power chakra, Manipura. A person on this side, on the other hand, is what Freud calls an extrovert. He is open to the impact of experience. He is not always pulling it into his system of determinations. He is open to it. People who find that they cannot experience the warmth and love of the world for them are very often introverts who want it to come to them in a certain way. They are trying to control what the world is going to give them. That is the introvert. And he has his own special way of being unhappy. The extrovert is altogether open, completely so. And of course, he may end up by getting nowhere. So he has his way of being unhappy too. Now, in the Jungian view, a person becomes, as a result perhaps of this, that, or the other thing, committed to one or the other of these attitudes in early life, and his development of his life follows the force of that course. Now let's suppose he is a power person, and he becomes infected with the idea to achieve a certain achievement. There will come a moment in life, a point in his life, when he will have achieved it, or pretty nearly have achieved it, or realized it was unachievable and sort of given up. Then he has what Jung calls disposable libido. Or again, he is still working to achieve, but it is becoming easier and easier and easier. He doesn't have to work so hard. He has disposable libido. So what's he going to do with his disposable libido? Well, he doesn't determine that. The disposable libido determines that. And what it does is go over here and begin to activate his erotic system, which, however, has not been developed. The last thing he was in love with was fishing when he was a little boy. That was his last experience of sensual delight and just the vivid world one way or another. Or Daddy's eyes begin to twinkle when he sees the younger set moving around. He thinks, oh dear, I missed it all because I was so busy building all those buildings. And then the family says, what's going on with Daddy? Now this is no joke because it's compulsive. He can't help it. Well, what's he going to do with this energy that's going to wreck his career? Chasing the little girls around. He can let it go and let the career be a wreck and then become, you might say, start all over again, as Faust did. Only not many people have a Mephistopheles to bring them to the witch's kitchen to rejuvenate their youth, and so one is afflicted with this agony too late. So you're the sugar daddy for somebody, but it really is too late and the whole thing is unsatisfactory and the nervous breakdown comes along. Or Daddy may say to himself, no, and become harder and harder in his resistance to all this, and very, very ungenerous in his thoughts about people who are enjoying that part of the world. In which case, 1/3 of his energy is going toward the little girls, another third is stopping him, and there's only 1/3 left, and things go to pieces anyhow. So one way or another, cracking up here. Let's take the other side. Mother. She's given her whole life to the outer world. Her whole world is out there, not in here at all. And then at a certain age, the little fledglings begin to be fledged, and the house gets to be emptier and emptier. And where's her life? Besides, the children start saying very nasty things about her and correcting her. She can't do anything right. And they don't want her anymore. And she's becoming more and more of a nuisance because the compulsion to control is taking over. To hold it to herself, this thing is going away. And she becomes what's known as a mother-in-law. So that at a certain stage in life, there is this inevitable problem. It's not the conflict, in Jung's terms, between ineptitude and the will to win, a result of infantile situations. It's not a hangover of my wish versus my parent, the Oedipus complex. It's an inevitable recurrence of the need to balance these two sides, which are in everybody, these two powers, the erotic and the power drive, the second and third chakras of the Kundalini system, which I was talking about, are there. They can't be wiped out. They have to be brought together. Now, if a person has lived 60% of his energy over here as an introvert, the extrovert factor is 40%. That's not too bad. Here's a person who can play in both worlds, has a fairly decent family life and a fairly decent success life. But if it has been overplayed in either direction, there is going to be a real crisis, possibly one that cannot be resolved at all, when the breakthrough comes. Now, Jung's term for this shift over, and it's always nice to have a big term for the things that are going to happen to you, is enantiodromia. That's a good one. And this is from Heraclitus, enantiodromia. Dromia means running. A dromedary is a racing camel. A hippodrome is a place where hippos, namely horses, run. Enantio in the other. Running in the other way, tipping over. Now, there are minor moments of enantiodromia long before the big crisis comes. Your attitude is all based on your own presentation of yourself and your prestige and so forth, and then you come into a place where nobody appreciates you. You get sulky. The other person comes up from within. The side that is inferior, is uncontrollable, is compulsive. A civilized human being is in control of his faculties. A barbarian is not. The function, then, of the second half of life for Jung is that of integrating these two. And this is the first point of what he calls the integration of the personality. Integration. And this is a problem that all of us face all the time. Life requires of us the movement in one or the other of these directions, and that you have to cultivate the opposite. So much then for the first point about Jung. He has shifted back one stage the definition of the libido, the driving psychological energy. For Freud, it was a sex drive, essentially. For Adler, a power drive. For Jung, it is an energy that operates in both directions, and necessarily so. And so we have for Jung the second and third chakras in operation, not simply one or the other. This is the simplest thing, the simplest part of explaining Jung. Amplified or extended definition of libido. Now we come to something else. Jung speaks of the 4 psychological functions. This is a very important point in his psychology. These 4 functions are to be classified in two pairs. One pair of functions that have to do with receiving experience. The other pair has to do with evaluating the experience. And I'll put the two receiving experience on the vertical here, and the two evaluating experience on the horizontal. The evaluating functions, the functions by which you evaluate experience and determine your response, are thinking and feeling. True, false, good, evil, that sort of thing. Shallow, deep, rich, thin, gratifying, repulsive. These are contrary to each other. They're totally different orders of judgment. In Jung's experience, the men, in the Western world at any rate, tend to favor the thinking function in the determination of their life judgments. The women tend to favor the feeling judgment. Thinking of an inferior sort is opinion. This is why you cannot argue with a woman. Opinion is thought governed by feeling judgment. And in order to change the opinion, you have to transform the feeling, not the thing up here. Inferior feeling is sentimentality. Sentimentality is feeling based on thoughts. And you can see this immediately in art, where art based on concepts, justice, then what are you going to do with that? You can become sentimental about these things. People whose feelings are undeveloped are sentimentalists. People whose thinking is undeveloped are opinionated. And after 36 years of teaching women, I can say that the next two functions have to do with the reception of the experience, which is to be evaluated. And these two are sensation, and intuition. Now, intuition is specifically defined by Jung to mean the experiencing of life in a certain way. Sensation has to do with the five senses. What the five senses are in touch with is what is right here spatially. The five senses take what is right here in this space field. Space. Intuition has to do with the catching, as the phenomenon comes, of its direction in time. What brings it about, what its aim is, where it's going, what it's going to take you to. Also, it is the recognition immediately of invisible relationships. This is the prime function for pedagogy and politics. Politics is the art of knowing what is possible and getting it like that, not thinking it out from collecting statistics and asking a statistician something or other. By that time it's too late. The one with the intuition has the ball. The sensation then, the person of sensation is oriented to space. The person, essentially intuitive, is missing that and catching future possibilities, past import, and all that sort of thing. What I want to point out is that every one of us is operating on two of these functions primarily. One by which we receive experience, another by which we judge experience, and the opposite functions will be inferior. Jung speaks of superior and inferior functions. They go into the unconscious. And the inferior functions in the unconscious tend to contaminate each other. Now let us look at the norms in our contemporary world. Our world is primarily oriented to the sensation-thinking functions in its sciences. There are two kinds of logic, one which gathers experience and then judges on the basis of thinking about it. This is inductive logic. Another thinks out some things and then goes to prove it and demonstrate it. That is deductive logic. And these are the favored functions for the male in our society. And then we attribute to the female the opposites. She's a person of feeling, she's a person of intuition. Whereas in the male, the feeling and intuition functions have been violently, very often, suppressed. In the arts, you can have the artist who reads sensation into feeling, a kind of impressionist, the feeling into sensation, sort of expressionist, and then you have the non-objective modes of intuition in one direction or another. A philosopher whose function is rather intuition than sensation is terribly difficult to classify, and here you have Nietzsche, for example, who speaks of himself as a dancing philosopher. He keeps shifting ground, and what he calls perspectivism is his main line. And it's a very different kind of philosophy from that, let's say, of Bertrand Russell. These four functions, then, are operating in all of us, two always in the inferior zone. Now, we are going to be either extrovert or introvert. If we are introvert sensation thinking, our feeling and intuition will be in the extrovert mode, and vice versa, and so forth and so on. See, this picture is getting to be a bit complicated. We have introvert now, extrovert, and then the four functions. A fully functioning, integrated individual is able to intuit when intuition is in order, to feel when it's time to feel, and to think when it's time to think. That is to say, all of his functions are adequately available. Now we come to the final point, and now we're approaching the theme of the archetypes of Jung. I want to draw a picture of the soul as Jung would describe it. Following Plato, the soul is a circle, so let's draw a circle. Now every circle has a center, so let's put a center there. However, as we know, we have a consciousness and an unconsciousness, and the center is below the threshold of consciousness. The center of consciousness, Jung calls ego. Ego, in relation to ourselves, is what we know of ourselves, what we identify as ourselves. Ego has a door open to the environment. Ego can see what is out there, the empirical reality outside. Ego is that psychological function which puts us in touch with empirical actuality and with the actuality about ourselves. It may, however, be imperfectly informed. It can be in error, but its potentiality is to be correct in its knowledge. That aspect of ourselves which ego refuses to admit, which is there, experiences that are rejected, Jung calls the shadow. The shadow is, to put it in a very succinct form, the Freudian unconscious. It is the result of our biography. It is biographically determined. But that there should be a shadow is inevitable. Every one of us has a shadow. The shadow, this is one of Jung's archetypes, is of the same sex as the ego. It is that aspect of your actual existence, your actual potentialities, your actual life experience, which has been repressed. Those traumatic scars and so forth that Freud talks about. Ego and shadow. The center and circumference, that is to say, the true bounding and centering of your actual personality and potentiality, Jung calls the self. Now he makes a great point of the distinction between his concept of the self, which is that a functioning biological creature, and the Hindu term Atman, which is generally translated self, which however refers to an anonymous spiritual principle, that which I spoke of earlier, which cannot be named, cannot be categorized, is beyond all classification, categorization, and so forth. The Indian aim in yoga to break through, to say, so to say, to break past out of this, to be released from this, and pitch oneself into the Atman, is as though the whole energy of the body were drained out into the source, ocean, from which all energy comes. That is not Jung's aim. He has nothing to do with that when he's going to be talking about individuation and all that sort of thing. So there's point one in cutting Jung away from Orientalism. He is accused of being a mystic. There's nothing mystical about anything I've been talking about so far. And there's nothing mystical about finding the harmony of your own system in the sense of mysticism as the attempt to unite yourself with the all. I see a hand up.
Couldn't like the self be the last syllable of the Om, the silence, the total self, and then Atman be the fourth?
Jung's self would be the first three syllables of Om, namely A-U-M. Waking consciousness, dream consciousness, deep sleep. And he's not going to try to pitch us down into the silence. He's not listening for the sound Om. Right? Okay, thank you. That's a good point. Now, next, and now I come to something a little bit difficult sometimes to present or to grasp. You face the world. The ego faces an environment through the protection of a society. The society offers you, the society in which you live, offers you certain roles to play. Rich man, poor man, beggar man, thief, doctor, lawyer, Indian chief, what are you going to be, Timmy? These roles, these parts to play, these garments to wear, Jung calls personae. The persona is the mask worn by a Roman actor. It is the mask worn by an actor. This mask includes the moral system of the society. Not only the role, but also the moral implications of the role. One of the psychological calamities of any life, from Jung's standpoint, is to identify ego with persona. When the ego becomes identified with the persona, you become a stuffed shirt. You are simply enacting a role. There is no body there. I want to point out that, as I showed this morning, this is exactly the aim of Oriental education, that you should become identified with the persona. Whereas the Jungian aim of what he calls individuation is to keep that separate. Now, that's not too easy, because when Mother says, do this and don't do that, a moral order is being presented to you, and your behavior, your character, your dress, everything else implies a certain role with which you identify. Jung's suggestion is that you put masks on and take them off, according to the requirements of circumstance, because this whole thing has to do with existence in the world, how you exist there. When the persona is identified with ego and is then rejected, The ego itself then seeks another persona. It can't stand on its own feet. This then is what he calls the ethnic unconscious, or ethnic consciousness. Because there are, as I'm about to point out, certain unconscious implications of this. I've left this open for the minute. I'm going to fill it in a minute. Those virtues rejected by the society, those virtues or vices, fall into the unconscious. There is a certain persona for the male, but he has sentiments that don't fit in that mask. These he projects on the female. There are certain sentiments expected of the female, others rejected. The rejected ones she projects onto the male. Furthermore, every one of us has within us a certain little seed germ, you might say, of the opposite sex. This is why we understand and meet and enjoy each other. We are each supplementing what is rudimentary in the other. The unconscious ideal of woman in the male, Jung calls the anima, that's the word for soul. The unconscious image of the male in the female, the unconscious ideal of the male in the female, he calls the animus. Now, the male image of the female, that is to say, the notion the male has of femininity, begins with his mother. This is the first being of his life. She is his nature world. And she remains the proper opposite. The female appreciation of the male begins only later, at a later age in life. 2, 3, 4 years old, depending on how precocious the little thing is. But by that time, her eyes are open to a number of males. There is her father, there is her brothers, there is her uncle, there's the doctor so-and-so, and all of that. So, as Jung says, a woman usually has a jury of animuses. And a woman, consequently, is far more flexible in her adjustment to different male images than the male is to adjustment to the female. Woman is always more ready for change and variety in moral judgments, in costume situations and all that. The male tends to be rather stuffy about these things. This then basically is the primary setup of the Jungian archetype system. There are some more coming along in a minute. We have the ego image, who in mythology is represented as the hero. We have the shadow, who in mythology is represented as that opposite, which is met at the threshold. We have the anima and animus of opposite sex, the luring one, the threatening one. And we have these various social masks of that square that I put up on the board this morning of the establishment. Now, for a while, everything's going fine. However, with this psychological setup, one can come up against an obstacle. There are a number of crises that may start everything moving. Let me suggest 3 or 4. First, there can take place what I've already mentioned, namely, a relaxation of outer demands. Your job does not require as much of you as it did require, and you have disposable libido. It goes down into the unconscious and activates what's down there. What's down there is not only the shadow, but the undeveloped functions. Feeling, intuition, or thinking, sensation, whatever they may be. Also down there is the rejected attitude. Not if you're an introvert, your extrovert is down there. So this whole thing comes up as that which you are not, bang, threatening the ego. just as, this is one then, relaxation of demands. Second, you may be older than you think. The whole psychology may have changed. Those things which are easy for youth are not so easy for later life, and vice versa. And yet we have, particularly in our culture, a kind of pathos of youth. Everybody wants to be young. Grandpa's trying to keep his golf score where it was when he was champion of the Harvard golf team, and is having all kinds of paroxysms of agony as a result of the way the score is creeping up. And Jung gives us an example of a crisis, a woman who is in her middle 40s, who is a spinster and has been going fine on that tack. And then, like the little princess whose golden ball dropped into the pool, she loses all the joy in her life, and suddenly she feels on the rocks. The joy of life has gone. She's living in terms that are not proper to her present psychological state. So you can say a threshold passed and not recognized. I'm just going to put later than you think. A third kind of crisis one finds on campuses. A student comes from a certain home environment and is rooming with a student from a totally different home environment and finds that that student's perfectly all right too. Yet that student represents everything that the family has repudiated. And so the moral code, the persona code that has been holding this young person in style, in form, is cracked. The very first day in sociology class, in her freshman year, Professor Blitzbaum tells her that her father is a scoundrel, that the family fortune is built on blood and bones. And the kid comes home for the Thanksgiving dinner, and there's an explosion in the house. The father thinks, what kind of an education am I paying for? And the student has fallen away from father. What happens then normally is, and this is a kind of spectacle that one sees all over the place on campuses, the child identifies with the opposite. Tips over, there's an enantiodromia already. She has been swallowed by the whale. And she comes to class next time with her hair a mess and her clothing all different, and she's just changed. Now, she's nuts. She's no better off than she was before, because she has simply gone into opposite and rejected this. The goal of the Jungian analysis is not to go into opposite, it's to find the middle. Centroversion is the word. Well, how do you find the middle? One way is to go into the opposite. So, let's have this underwater excursion. Since every move now is the result of what Professor Blitzbaum told her, she isn't thinking at all. She is compelled. She's moving like a mad woman. And a campus, an institution, is a good place for somebody like that. It protects her against the number of bumps which she gets when she confronts the police and then is surprised. The institution, the campus, is a kind of sanctuary for this experiment in the abyss. She has become a mermaid down there in the water with a fish tail and a fishy smell too. So we have the loss of security in one's moral convictions. This is a moral crack-up. The fourth that I want to speak of is the most moving and tragic. It is precisely the tragic crisis, namely the necessity to make an impossible decision between two absolutely impossible terms. One can think of a man who has fallen into deep poverty. He is a person who has been very righteous. I saw a good deal of this during the Depression when people were absolutely smashed. How can he both support his family and not steal, not become a criminal in his own life? You can't let your family die. You can't become a criminal. An impossible decision. Well, he makes a decision. That's the tragic decision. Or consider on a more imposing level the problem of Abraham when God said, kill Isaac. That is a tragic summons, and that is the great thing about that moment. He makes his decision. Well, God saves him the result of it, but that's the cheating in the story, you might say. Most people don't have that luck. They have to do the thing that is intolerable. And when that has been done, an intolerable decision made, and you have to do the intolerable, your whole spiritual stance changes. It has been intolerable because it's unrealistic. Your moral code in the face of this circumstance is unrealistic. The main aim of life is to live, according to any judgment in these psychological terms. So there we have it. The situation changes and everything changes. The whole structure of the psyche changes. The opera begins. Now when the persona structure begins to rattle and go loose, so does the anima animus structure. One begins to be fascinated by alien forms. The allure of the anima image or animus image that is not that standard of one society becomes very imposing. It draws one out. This I call the twinkle twinkle temptation. The anima in this sense is always suggestive of evil, of sin. Come into the dark alley, little boy. The woman's image at this time is being ravished away by some demonic figure or something like that. On the other hand, if this isn't what is moving, but the shadow thing coming up, for instance, if a person has been devoted all his life to the extrovert attitude of life, the real threat is the power drive within, which is suppressed. And then this powerful shadow begins banging. And I always think of that as the knock-knock temptation. Who dat down there? You're just a frightened person of your own potentialities. I remember one charming little minister one time saying to me, if I did not believe in Christ and the salvation of the church, I would become a terrible person. I looked. I said, well, what do you think you'd do? And he named a couple of things. And I said, well, you get tired pretty soon. And furthermore, there'd just be one more philanderer added to the number, and who would care? You're not dangerous at all. And that relieved him a little bit. So these are the two first threats. The shadow threatening from below, the anima or animus pulling you out from out there. And now it begins. Now the first stage of the process is that of going into opposite. As I've said, the student becomes a raving lunatic down here with all kinds of opinions about how to govern the universe, and doesn't yet know how to brush her teeth. And or a person comes down here infatuated with some very, very dangerous male or female who has all kinds of intentions, and the thing goes into movement. As I say, the first images are those of being ravished away. Jung describes the kind of imagery that comes up in dreams of this type at this moment. The emergence of demons, threatening. the emergence of succuba and incubuses and all that sort of thing, being ravished away by charging horses, carried aloft by eagles, pulled down into the sea and so forth. You'll find these things in your dreams, the beginning of the integration. What we're trying to do is get everything pulled together here. I think of this often as comparable to driving a car. One drives from the left-hand drive, you see? And if you're not aware of the right-hand part of the car, you're driving from up here, and if you're not aware of what's down here, you're going to be taking fenders off and bumping into people and all that sort of thing. Well, is the way to solve the problem to get over here on the other drive and take them off over here? That's what happens when you go down into the unconscious. The thing you have to do is find out where the middle of the car is and drive with a parallax idea, judging the car. But you can't do that unless you know what's the other side of the car, and you have to go down there one way or other. The first figure to come into collision with the individual is the shadow figure. Those aspects of your own masculinity or femininity, your own actuality that you have not assimilated. This must be assimilated. So stage one is the assimilation of the rejected elements, aspects of one's own character. Jung calls this swallowing the frog. This is going through the narrow pass. This is that crisis that I mentioned in my hero cycle of this morning, when the hero comes to the threshold of adventure and meets the dark one, who is simply the other lost aspect of himself, the dark side of the moon. Next, the anima animus problem comes in. When this starts, one must not assimilate and identify. If you assimilate with your anima animus, there takes place a homosexual transformation. You tend to assume the inferior femininity or inferior masculinity of your own character. And a masculinized woman is not a very convincing man, and vice versa. Better to hold it and relate to that. You have to relate to this. What you are trying to find is the center, and there will be a guiding voice if you listen. Shadow first, to be assimilated. Anima animus as the guide to what Jung calls the archetypes of the unconscious. Those powers of the psyche with which you must not identify, but which you must recognize as operating in you. I had a very moving experience a couple of months ago when a young man came to me who thought he had been designated by God to take God's place. I saw him 2 or 3 times, and I won't say who or what his name was like or anything else, but he had these lovely eyes, and he was a Jewish boy. He had the hair with what the Germans call a Christusgesicht. He had cultivated the look of Christ, and there he sat telling me, the third time he saw me, I know I was right with what I told you first. I have seen my father. I have talked with him. He is old now. And he tells me I must take over. I'm going to live for 2,000 years, and so forth and so on. What was wrong with that boy? The image in his heart was a good one. All he had done was identify himself with it and not let it operate in him. It was to me an appalling experience, because I realized that 2,000 years before I might have been looking at someone saying the same thing with exactly the same face. Now, sometimes you can get away with it. Sometimes you can't. Finally, we come in the dream system to symbols of centering, becoming centered. And these Jung calls mandala symbols. That is a Sanskrit word meaning circle. And all of these mandalas tend to a center, to a fourfold division with the self in the center, the four functions all functioning. That's to say, there is in his idea a correspondence between the psychological four and the 4 points of the compass. That is the form of a temple. That is what you see in every temple. The sanctuary in the center, the 4 points of the compass symbolize the gates of entry and so forth. This is what is symbolized in the cross. This is what is symbolized in the swastika, which is simply the cross in motion. These forms begin to appear in the dream, and there will be characters set around in them, and there may be 3 elements, 4 elements, 5 elements, depending on how many of your functions and your relationship to them are in play. Your dreams, then, will start out with dreams of crisis, danger. Then there will take place a long series of what Jung calls the transitus, going back and forth. The thing about psychological transformation is it doesn't usually happen quickly. It's a long, slow ordeal. It can sometimes be 2/3 of a lifetime to get over one simple bump. But finally it will happen, and you'll begin to have a sense of where your center is, what the center of judgment is, when feeling should work, when thinking should work. Your senses will be awake, your intuition's active, and you will begin to be what he calls an integrated personality. The problems of youth are not those of this integration. The problems of youth are those of relating to the persona system and maintaining a sense of distance from it, but you've got to operate in those terms. Otherwise, conk out. The problem of second half of life, when the roles that you've been living are dropping away, is to catch these powers that are beginning to push up and knock you apart from your own unconscious without identifying with them. So much then for a summary 1-hour presentation of the basic psychology and archetypology of Jung. This figure in the center he calls the wise old man. This is the image that comes into people's mind with the guiding one. The guru is always the wise old man. The guru image is that of the guiding one who can bring you to fulfillment. But your best guru is in yourself. Outside gurus can give you hints and so forth, but you must always carom off the instruction that comes to you from others. And then the total feminine character, he calls the great mother. The anima, it will lead you finally to these realizations. The anima becomes the daughter of wisdom. She's leading you to your own fulfillment, and the voice of the wise old man is the interpreter of the world. The image of woman represents the world, as one's mother is one's world. The image of the male is the interpreter of the world, the guide to the world. They have their place. They are together one. 2 aspects of the one mystery. One can tell you about it, the other is it. One can support it, enforce it, bring it to maturity, the other is it, seeking to be brought to maturity. And that's the way these things work. Now these are the basic archetypes then. There's the ego, the hero, the golden one. The shadow, the dark, threatening one. The anima, animus, that opposite beloved, who may be dangerous or may be helpful, but if dangerous will, if followed properly, transform into the guide to wisdom. One good way to wisdom is the way of sin. The voice within is the guiding voice, the wise old guru guide. And then the great mother and the world represents the fulfillment.
There we are. Well, how'd you like it? Big bite there. A lot of psychology going on there. It's certainly not anything. Don't be frustrated. It's certainly not anything you pick up the first time you listen to it. You'll have to listen to that lecture a number of times. Thankfully, I've got the outlines for you, and they will help you walk through those different mind states that that Joseph was talking about. This is essential psychology. Not everything that he says is going to perfectly align with your life, but there are going to be key emphasis, key moments, key crisis, as he mentioned in the show, key crisis, which will change you. That one of the biggest moments in that lecture is when he talks about the unthinkable choice. The individual that is, they're just living their life the best that they can. They're not a bad person, a criminal, or anything like that. They're just doing their best to get through life. And just through the circumstances that they engage in their life, they find themselves to have to make an impossible decision. And as Campbell noted in the lecture, this happened all the time in the Great Depression, when you had no money and your family is starving and you have to become a criminal if you want to feed them. So it's not the right decision to become a criminal. It's not the right decision to let your family starve. There's no correct decision. There's no incorrect decision. It's the impossible decision. And it is those kinds of decisions I've faced those a number of times in my own life, when you have had to cross the threshold. You've had to leave the moral system, the moral bounds that have always held you in a certain position, perspective. And you have to leave that because you have to make a decision. And that decision doesn't fall within the moral guideline emphasis that you've always followed. And when you are forced into that, not because you're bad, not because you're mean, not because you're evil, but just because of life, that's when you see the epiphany. That's when it's rendered to you. That life doesn't fit within the bounds that you grew up in. That the childhood notions and the childhood moral system that were put into you by the society, by your parents, as he mentioned with the Freud portion, that whole persona has to be abandoned. And you abandon it when you abandon the moral system, the moral finitude that you've always been within. And that cracks the psyche. He says it in the lecture. That cracks the psyche. And when the psyche gets cracked, that's when the light can come in. Because the psyche has always been closed. You've been living within the moral bounds, the demands that you were raised in as a child. And adulthood will show you, you can't always just take those moral grounds and bounds that were put into you as a child and just flat apply them as an adult. It's not cut and dry. Life is not clean like that. Nobody gets through clean. Nobody gets through easy. You don't grow up unless you face those kinds of situations that are off the map. Off the map, and you have to go completely off of your instincts and where your heart rests. Because no society, no parent, no guru can give you the answer. It's the impossible decision. And that's what's so important. And what is happening right now? You guys, can you see it? I mean, this is going to open up for you right now. What is happening right now is the society's mind, the society's moral term is being cracked by the Great Awakening, by showing you things that people have been doing, leaderships that have been completely corrupt, and you've been, hinging, fostering your life off of that morality, off of that system. And now the world is showing you that it isn't what it once was. And this is the crisis right now. This is the crisis. Because even the play, the illusion, there are people that have gripped to that. And that kicks right into what I wanted to talk to you guys about today. I'll show you something. Now, last week, when we were in Zoom this week, there was a tremendous amount of feedback in regard to this movie here. This stuff here that we watched. This stuff here. We're about to walk into that. And the response was so strong that last night after Zoom, when I was taking a shower before last night. A quote, a beginning set of statements from Alan Watts came into my mind. And it tied direct. This is unexpected. This just happened again. I think we're like 6 for 6 now in weeks this has happened. But it tied perfectly and directly into this cracking of society, cracking of the illusion, the breaking down of normalcy, right? And that's what this movie does, right? The breaking down of normalcy, right? And so this quote came into my mind in regards to the jester, because I told you guys yesterday, the president is playing the role of the jester. And this, I couldn't believe it. I'm in the shower and I'm sitting there going, okay, I know there's a quote by Watts that ties into the jester. And I finally was able to find it on YouTube. So I'm going to play that for you right now. And I just want you to listen. I just want you to listen. Hang on, let me get it. Let me retrieve it. Video file. I just want you to hear this, and then I'm going to interpret it. You guys ready? Okay. It's only audio, and it's 1.5 minutes.
Know that in ancient times, all kings had at their courts a court fool. And sometimes it probably was true that the fool was a crazy person who had a peculiar capacity for making inappropriate remarks. And there's something about inappropriate remarks that can be very funny. And in this way, of course, the person who could make inappropriate remarks at the right moment can sometimes...
Oh, no. Sorry.
But actually, as time went on, the function of the fool became more sophisticated than that. And he became a person whose function was not simply to make jokes and to be a funny man, but to remind the monarch of his humanity, so that he would never get too stuffy. You remember perhaps the lines in Richard II, where the king says, within the hollow crown that rounds the mortal temples of a king, keeps death his watch. And there the antic sits, the antic being the court fool. And there the antic sits, scoffing at his state and grinning at his pomp, allowing him a little time to monarchize, be feared, and kill with looks. And then at the last comes death, and with a little pin bores through his castle wall, and farewell, king.
And farewell, king. You guys get it? Farewell, king. So let's go. Where is my add to stage? Okay. Now, this is key to understanding what is happening right now. There are double meanings and double metaphors within virtually every perspective that exists right now, because we're in the midst of a great awakening. We're in the midst of a great transformation. And you don't have a transformation of a society without a great rift to open that society, to allow there to be light. And so in order for the play to be relevant and applicable to your position right now in life, it must have many different landscapes that speak to all the different fissures and openings that are occurring right now in sort of the morality, the history, the overall mythology that undergirds the entire society. Okay. Now, Watts's quote was almost to the word, but I looked up the quote from Richard II, and that's one of the reasons why I took it off the screen so you wouldn't be confused. There were just some slight additions and words that the actual quote from Richard II pointed out that was a little more efficient than the memory of Alan. And so by using the official terms of Richard II, we can better elucidate the mythology that is hiding in this quote that applies to this scene, top left. Okay, top left. Okay, within the hollow crown, notice, within the hollow crown that rounds the mortal temples of a king, keeps death his watch. This is that philosophy that there is the seed of destruction in all things. Everything carries its own destruction. You carry death within you. You carry the seed of your own physical destruction, your own mental destruction, and your own spiritual epiphany, because spirit can't be destroyed. Okay? Death is always keeping his watch, meaning that the birth, the new life that will come from that death is always there. That's the other eye of the yin-yang. The dots of the yin-yang fish are the seed of the other. So within the destruction, within your life destruction, there is a seed of replenishment, rebuilding. It is in you, right? Here. Move. That seed is in you. This is why when your life is destroyed, if you find it within yourself, you can rebuild it. This is what we all are going to have to do. This is the Great Awakening. We all will have to find it in ourselves to rebuild what is being destroyed. Okay. So death is keeping his watch. And there the antic sits. This is the doubter. This is the disobedient. This is the cynical. And what did I tell you guys years ago about me? I'm a cynic. I'm a doubter. And the doubter, the cynic, sits and keeps watch because they're objective. They're not buying it. They're doubting. And in order to be objective, you're going to have to doubt what society, what the guru, what your parents told you. You must graduate, see through the master, become the master. Just had the quote the other day. Okay. Scoffing at his state and gritting at his pomp. We now move towards the president, allowing him a breath, a little time to monarchize, be feared and kill with looks, infusing him with self and vain conceit. Don't miss the double symbolism here that applies to both the Illuminati and the jester. Now think. Scoffing at his state and grinning at his pomp, allowing him a breath, a little time. Now picture the president and the head of the Illuminati. Okay? Picture that in your head with this statement. Allowing him a breath, a little time to monarchize, be feared, and kill with looks, infusing him with self and vain conceit. Okay? This is what's happening. It is both exposing as well as destroying. It is the exposure of the rebuilding and the destroying of the old. Both. Two metaphors, one person, one individual, the president and the Illuminati, meaning each one. And this is the double that's happening right now. The exposure of the corruption so that new growth can come about. You see? As well as the exposure of the vain conceit that infuses these powers. This is one of the ways that the Illuminati has remained in power over you. The vain conceit for president is a different thing. The vain conceit in this regard here that I'm telling you is the vain conceit of the controllers who've always been in control. You are seeing that exposed when you see what they've been doing, right? Off the books, quote unquote. When they destroy all the laptops with hammers, when they try and erase the hard drive, right? They're trying to keep their truth from being exposed. And we see this right now, folks. You're seeing it happen right now. Right now, we, the disobedient, the doubter, the cynical, are seeing this unfolded as if this flesh, which walls about our life, were brass, impregnable, and humored thus. Double meaning here, speaking to the illusion of life and the gravity of the situation. So we have the exposure and now the gravity of the situation. The gravity of the situation is they are only as thick as we allow them. They're only as dense, meaning they're only as formidable as we give to them. That's the empty crown. That's the empty crown. The authority is only as powerful as you give, as you allow. This is the gravity right here, showing it to you right here. As if this flesh which walls about our life were brass impregnable, which is not, and humored thus. That's the humored thus. You see, in other words, the temple is going to fall. That's what it's saying. From Richard II, from a lecture I remember from Watts from the 70s. You talk about patterns from nowhere. Comes at the last, and with a little pin. What does it take to kill the king? What does it take to kill the Illuminati? All it takes is mind expansion. That's the little pin. The mind expansion. The camel nose that gets under the tent and lifts the tent up, just that little piercing of the membrane, piercing of the tent bottom, piercing through the illusion. This, all it takes is a little pin. And that little pin is simply your observing. All you have to do is see the evidence. And they're showing it to you. You're seeing it. Remember the crack, the opening, so that the light can come through, so the light can shine in. That's what you're seeing. And there's so much of it. And it's so bad, it has to be delivered over years of time, or people would have mental breakdowns. Because that's what happens when the psyche cracks. Do you follow? Let me shut this off because it's annoying the hell out of me. Because the psyche cracks. The light must be let in, bores through the castle wall. And this is what's happening. Truth is boring through your castle walls, is boring through the castle wall of the Illuminati, is boring through the illusion that is the play that's happening in politics. It's all crumbling. It's all crumbling. And farewell, king. And there it is. The seed of destruction is the truth. Destruction of all believed to be true. Allow that, which is the arrow of truth, piercing the corrupt death of the old way. The jester cuts through illusion. This is the role of the president. The jester cuts through illusion with humor and pomp. The same way the doubter, the disobedient, the cynical disempower authority. Are you following? Are you following? The way the jester disempowers authority is humor. What role do you see the president playing? Not only disempowering himself, but disempowering the authorities. That's why he is the character that he is. Do you follow? That's why he's playing this role. Laughter disempowers authority. Farewell to what you held. Farewell to the old way. Farewell, king. Farewell, king. And this is what you're seeing. Now look, I'll show you. I'll walk you right into it here. Look. Here's the patterns. The play on the top left, we talked about that last week. Then we know that the towers are an inside job. And then the poppy fields, which were the means and ways for the CIA to blackmail, or excuse me, to make money. In order for the CIA to carry out their black ops, they have to generate funds. Well, to generate funds, you can't just go to Congress and say, hey, we want a bunch of money. You have to do it in a clandestine way, so none of the public knows about it. So you have to figure ways of how we get money into our system without the public knowing we're putting money into our system. And the way they did it was, we simply grow all the opium, we manufacture it into heroin as well as the cocoa into cocaine, right? We manufacture all that through the CIA, right? And then meaning the CIA, hire the drug lords. We put our people, the CIA, to go meet with the drug lords to supply them. The CIA supplies the drug lords, who then go out and sell the goods to the public, right? You're killing the public, right? You put the poison in the public, and then the public pays cash. All drug deals are done in cash. So all that cash goes to the drug lord. And then you have this, isn't it amazing? We, the FBI and the CIA, we just caught this drug lord, and look at all this cash we seized. Right? And then they just pocket all that cash. That's not accounted. That cash goes into the system. They feed themselves. And this is what this is. This is what you're seeing in the top right. The poppies. The same way they took out China. Addict the population and extract all their money. It's the exact same model for China, for how the Rockefellers de-established China and took over. Same thing happening in America. And then look at, there's all the money like we talked about. I'm going to show you guys even deeper connections in a minute. But this is the pallets of cash, right? All of these illicit deals have to be done in cash. No accountability, so that you can't trace it. That's the reason why this is happening like this. They then pay. There's the OxyContin model, which we talked about. Then we showed on the far right there in the middle. We see that the blue and white nation is in charge, has been in charge of the United States, which is the power broker. Who is the most powerful broker in the world? The United States. That's why the United States has always had this corrupt leadership, where the wars never end. They keep taking away your sovereignty. They keep taking all of your money, increasing the power of the IRS to take more money from you. This is the reason why it's like that. It's a power broker. The USA is a power broker. It's the military arm. Do you see? This is all organized. And this is why it carries out all of these nefarious dealings, right? You see on the right there, right? Then these are the players. You guys saw this on the bottom left. Those are the players that carried out the 9/11. Then they hired out the brown shirts, which is who you see there. That's that mask. Keep that mask in mind. This mask right there that he's holding right there. Keep that in mind. Bottom middle. Bottom middle. And then the assets. Who's eating all the assets? Right? The controllers. Now watch. This is what this whole thing on the bottom right is about. Look. Show you. Let's remove. Go. Here. Sorry. Jumped ahead here. This, everyone gets a piece of the action. Take note of the yellow mask and the color of Epstein shirts, and then those that pay control the ground game with unlimited money, influence, and chaos, warmongering, and authority. Okay, you're seeing all the connections. I'm showing them to you. Okay, you can't not see it. It's so clear. Now look, this all here. Now look, the reason for that whole stuff you see on the far right, people, and that whole movement, right? That keeps the right side pacified rather than revolting in the streets, right? You got to keep the people passive. You can't have them revolting. You can't have them rioting out in the streets. All the rioting has to take place through the control system. So you have to keep the public pacified, and then you put in your brown shirts that are paid to look like the public, so it looks like the public is revolting. The public is not revolting. They're putting on a play that the public is revolting. The public is not revolting. Those are brown shirts. Those are brown shirts. They're paid agitators. Okay. You have the same paid agitators or non-agitators on the right. These are paid pacifiers. Right? They pacify the hard right-hand power. And then you have your central person. In this case, we'll say for this situation, there she is. And look, she's even holding, she even has right there on her belly, the dualism. She serves both equities. She's a double agent. It's the dull right side that doesn't see this. They think that they're a part of this amazing movement that's going to save everybody. It's going to be a savior. There's no savior in this movement, people. There's no savior. You save yourself. You save yourself. There's no side that's going to save you. Neither side. No one's coming to save you. Nobody. No group, no institution. Stop that passive adolescent attitude. Stop that. Waiting for your savior. Stop that. Being on your knees, pleading, asking. Stop that. Stop it. It's exactly what they want you doing. Get off your freaking knees. Get off your freaking knees. All right. So she's pacifying while also serving both equity. She's pacifying the right while serving the left. And this is why they showed her in that picture. Right? There's Satanism, mind control, undergirds both sides. Right and left. Right and left. Satanism. Ready? Satanism is behind the right and the left movement. Same in Europe. They're right. I don't know what they're called in Europe, but their right side, their left side, conservative or labor or something of it. That's all taken. None of it is authentic. None of it is in your best interest. None of it is here to help you. None of it. They will never help you. You must help yourself. You must educate yourself. Stop depending. Okay. And then real quickly, we remembered the 60s movement. Oswald and Ruby frequented a nightclub owned by Reeves, who was killed in an odd plane crash. Okay, and then I walked through that scene right there in the middle. We know that JFK was an inside job. These are the players and stuff. I'm getting to bigger points here. That's why I'm moving through this quickly. And then we got Laurel Canyon. If you want to understand Laurel Canyon and the God Eaters, if you want to understand Laurel Canyon and the whole music industry, watch my God Eaters series. I'll show you. And we have Brian De Palma. We covered this last week, but here's the thing that I wanted you to see in this pic here. Now, the halo around that child's head is to serve two purposes. One is to render their innocence, and two, to also show that they're controlled, right? They're controlled. The halo of the CIA. This is, again, the double meanings that are locked in all of this, right? Double meanings. Okay. Manson is a CIA asset, a proof of theory that mind control works. De Palma links Hollywood to mind control stemmed from the work of Aquino, which was in the picture with the double agent gal up there on the right. The ring around the child's head represents mind control, and the link is to Bieber. It serves two purposes: mind control as well as the pureness that they're going after, that they are infiltrating and taking. And he's a captured agent. Bieber's a captured agent. He was captured as a child. In case you guys don't know this, there are ways to mentally destroy a person and literally make them into someone that they're not, literally. And they will behave in public as the person that you program into them. It's a real thing, and I cover all of it in my God Eater series. I talk about all of that. Okay, Bieber is one of those people, just like Manson. Bieber, Manson, De Palma, this gal up here on the right, all of the Satanists that are involved, they're all brainwashed, tortured people that have been put into this position as an agent to carry out an agenda. They're not authentic people. They're programmed individuals. Programmed. Everything you're seeing in the media, on the news, are programmed individuals that are carrying out an agenda. Do you see? Nothing is authentic. And then drugs leak back to pharma. And then last week, as I missed it, this is Rob Reiner's son, the guy up there on the left. That's why it says Nicholas Rainier right there, Rob Reiner, sorry. All right. And then we notice, you guys know this, Rob Reiner is an unhinged TDS parasite, and he's used to poison and set a hate agenda. So the role of Rob Reiner is to make you hate certain political figures, namely the jester. That's his role. His role is to attempt to disempower the jester, because you see, there are two powers at work here. There are two energies playing out in the theater, the play that you are watching. And there are different agendas that are being shown to you. So you clue in to both. And don't get tied into one or the other, expecting yourself to be destroyed, expecting a savior. Don't tie into either agenda, right? Okay, and then we see here, Obama is tied directly into the play. He's a center figure. That's why he's in the center of the room. And then we see his son, who's now sitting with his hands clasped in his lap. He's a pawn. He's a pawn. He's inactive. He's a pawn. And this is, and they're showing you how their operation works. And then we have here, obviously, the Illuminati, and we see Obama tied in. There's the mask to show you that those gentlemen that were in that picture are also tied into the Illuminati. This is just to render to you. And then we see these people are all tied into the Illuminati on the far left here. I showed you that. The military's tied in. That's why she's tied into this thing. And you see the military here on the top right. He's tied into this thing. The military, in other words, is tied into all the Satanism. Everybody's tied in, including the media. And then I showed you the Levant, and I showed you this kid here last week. This is the trafficking. This is showing you that, those two words are going on rampantly, and it feeds the system. That's the meals a day. These are the meals that are feeding the system. Do you follow? The media cover up on the left, bulldoze the truth. All that most know are lies and propaganda through the media, which I showed you, right? The jester's court scene designed to disempower, dysregulate, and remove former authority, class, and perception with mockery. Remove entitlement of oneself. This is what the president does with an unpalatable character. Macho man is undigestible, can't support or deny the jester. That's the deeper truth. Just laid it out to you. That's the deeper truth. That's the deeper truth. Remove entitlement of oneself with an unpalatable character because the macho man is undigestible, can't support or deny the jester. What are they doing there? They're keeping you from making him your hero. Do you follow? They're making sure he's as unlikable as possible so he never is allowed to be your hero, so that you will look to yourself as the hero. They don't want any characters in this play for you to attach to, for you to seek to, for an answer, to come and save you, to stop doing that and to focus on yourself and save yourself. That is what the deeper truth is here. And then he exposed, obviously, the golden corruption. We've seen that. And then this is the interesting shot here. The Illuminati has been split. That's what that eye, but from the president's eyes through the Illuminati, this is to show the splitting. And then we're taking back. In this scene, he is representing the people taking back the power. That's why there's a bite out of it. That's the Illuminati has been feeding off of us, and we are taking back the power. How do we take back the power, Chuck? You expand your awareness. You expand your consciousness. That's how you take back the power. You don't look and ask, hey, will you please bring my power back to me, Mr. President? Hey, Jesus, will you please bring my power back to me and hand it to me, please? Thank you. Nature, will you please just hand me my power back, please? Here, can you just please give it to me? No, you seize it. You go out and get it. How do you go out and get it? You listen to talks like we did today. You educate yourself. You expand your mind. You go outside the bounds. You exit the cracks and go into the light. You leave Plato's cave. You do that. You do that. And that's the point of this movie, is to help empower you to do that. That's just showing you here. Let's go to comments. Let's go to comments, see what you guys have to say. How's everybody doing? There's our quick intro. Not bad. 30 minutes. We're all good. I'm going to the bottom. If you've got any questions, please let me know. What's happening, Ashcon? What's happening, buddy? Hey, Esoteric. Glad that you're here. Welcome. Glad that you're here. Yes, exactly. Do not believe. Become a cynic. Disobey. Mock the authority. Laughing at the authority takes away their power. That's why the jester is in the center of the court. He's to contain. He's to bring into reason the power of the king. Remind him of his material aspect, that he's not a king. He's not a ruler, essentially. Hello, Chuck. Hi, Bob. What's up, buddy? This amazing meeting. Hey, man, welcome. I'm about to go on stage to do the Jesus story. Unbelievable. The irony is thick, isn't it, Bob? On one in which I am now just a spectator. Nice. Nice. Here we go. Rob Reiner vomited his message via Archie Bunker. It was very effective. My father detested him, and that impressed me as a teen. Yeah. Anytime you see someone that filled with hate, remember the quote, if you can be turned into a hateful person and angry and so on and so forth, you're being controlled. If all you spout is hate, revenge, murderous comments, right there, that person is telling you, right in their behavior, I'm controlled. I don't have control of myself. Like Campbell said, I'm a barbarian. That's what that person is saying to you when they're spewing the hate and they're putting people down and destroying society, right? The values of society. They're telling you right on the front end, I'm a control op. I don't have control of my faculties. I am being controlled by something else. That's why I am saying such inhumane things. That's why I am doing such inhumane acts. Because I, the hater, is not in control of themselves. They're showing it to you. And you, as the wise person, then can see their behavior and be like, a bot. Better not listen to them. And right there, you've disempowered them. Right there, you've taken away all their power, because you know through psychology, a person who behaves like that is not in control of themselves. And a person who behaves like that and is not in control of themselves is behind the ball. They don't hold the ball. They're not in control of themselves. They're not in control of their faculty. Why would you want to listen to a person who is not in control of their own faculties, who's a barbarian? Why would you listen to that person? Do you see? This is how you see through the lies, folks. This is how you see right through it. Yes. This is how you see right through it. See, he's supposed to be both a chump and a revealer, a jester. Both. You see, and if you just see him as a chump, you see, you won't see what the jester is rendering to you. If you take the jester's jokes at face value and don't see their deeper meaning, you won't have a belly laugh because you don't see the deeper meaning. And this is what happens to the person who thinks Trump is just a chump. No, he's a jester. You're supposed to hate him. You're supposed to think he's a chump so you don't see the deeper insight that he is offering you. He's showing you through the jokes, through acting like a chump, the deeper truths. And that's why it's a belly laugh, because you see, that's what's being rendered. You're not taken by his behavior. If you're taken by his behavior and you hate him and you loathe him and you put him down, you're a bot. You're caught. You're not in control of your own faculties. You're a barbarian. You don't see through the illusion. Because essentially, he's not a chump. It's a deeper sense. That's the surface. On the surface, yeah. Surface looks just like a chump, acts like a chump. Sure. On the surface, he's supposed to. That's his role. What's the problem? Don't get taken by the surface. Why are you being taken by the surface? See the deeper aspect. He's dismantling, in case you didn't know it, the jester is what is dismantling the king. Do you guys see the mythology in play? You're living in it. He's disempowering the king. Who's the king? The Illuminati. Those who have always run the world. The only person who can do that is the jester. Because the jester doesn't take authority seriously. A jester mocks authority so that you can see through it. You see the joke that it is. You see that it only holds power because you give it power. Trump only is a chump because you make him that. You don't see the deeper truth, so you blind yourself. That's your problem. You're taken. Do you see? Do you see? Let's go to the bottom. Let's see what you guys are saying. Same thing. Same thing. He is simply a form to show you a deeper insight. Stop getting caught. I'm not saying you are, Gibson. Stop getting caught up in the form. Stop getting caught up in these figures, these authorities, and making them something that they're not. Trump isn't a savior. Jesus isn't a savior. Allah isn't a savior. These are insights into a deeper sense. They're a form, a figure, a costume. And if you remove the costume, you will see the deeper truth and you will no longer be taken by the costume. You do the same thing in your own life with your psychology. When you understand your dysfunctions, you remove those dysfunctions so that you become your true self. And in order for these characters to become the essence they're pointing at, you have to loose from their form. You must loose from their form. If you're taken by their form, you're a barbarian. You're not in control of your own faculty. You're not in control of yourself because you're taken by the form. The psychology is right in front of you. And until you see it, you will continue to act in ignorance. You must see it to change. Right on. Welcome. Welcome. That's it. Yes. But the script is important, friend. The script is also telling you something. It's at the same time telling you to leave and get away, Be careful, don't look at this. And at the same time, it's also saying there's actually a treasure down there. If you can get past the hang-ups of the costume, if you can get past the initial padlocks that keep you from the treasure inside, and it doesn't look like a treasure because it looks like a chump. Same thing. The Illuminati is a very destructive appearance, a very destructive outer core. But if you see the truths that they abide by, they actually are according nature, but they've done it in a way that harnesses evil rather than good or balance. There's a deeper sense there, and there's a reason why they've been successful. They are engaging nature power principles, yes, but they are using them to your demise. You see? So absolutely, you run from those things, but at the same time, you must know those things so that you don't run from them. Many different, highly conflictive messages that you have to use discernment to see through. See through the master, become the master. Yeah? Yeah, that'd be a great idea. Yes, he was. He's the only one who was given access to the flesh of God. Exactly. You're welcome. It's a different perspective, Amy, and you guys don't have to integrate it. It's just simply a different perspective. I'm trying to offer you a deeper insight so that you're not taken, so that you can kick back, watch the news, see the deeper truth they're trying to hide, and ignore the fakery, the lies that they're trying to tell you. Then you don't get caught, you don't get emotional, you don't get taken, you stay nonplussed. You remain the one holding the ball rather than behind the ball. The person who is taken by the surface illusion is behind the ball, and they'll get crushed. Yes. Yes. If everything falls, great awakening. What stops the subordinates from taking control? Because they go with it, friend. That's the difference, Dawn. The difference, Dawn, is that the authorities go down alongside the awakening, the great awakening. That's the eye of reconstruction that is within the destructive aspect of the yin yang. So while you're seeing the lies, while you're seeing the kingdoms being destroyed, the new kingdom is being built, namely your mind. That's the kingdom I'm talking about. The collective kingdom's mind, the collective mind of the kingdom, of the collective. You guys get my point. And that is rebuilding as the tower falls, because the seed of rebuilding is in the arrow of destruction. That's that idea of Odysseus shooting the Cyclops. The arrow has the balm of a compassion, so that as the arrow pierces the center, pierces the eye of the individual, the balm of compassion is already there, so that as the tower is destroyed, the compassion is already there. The compassion is the truth being rendered to you, so that as you see the world collapsing, you see the truth of oneself and the collective love that transcends the destruction. The seed of rebuilding is within the downfall. That seed is your heart. That seed is the collective heart. That's the seed of rejuvenation. That is the seed, the humanness, humanity is the seed, right? That is going to rebuild what all is being destroyed. What is being destroyed? The entire world, all the authorities. We are the seed of the replenishment. This is why you must grow up. This is why you must leave the egregores, because we rebuild the city. Just like you rebuild your own mind when you go to the psychologist and they tell you all the things, they shoot the arrow through your eye, through your consciousness of your truth. You're an addict, you're a codependent, you're not in charge of yourself, you're a barbarian. And the psychologist shows you this so that you can't deny it. That's the arrow through the eye. You can't deny it. That's why the Cyclops was shot through the eye, piercing the middle. And when the psychologist shows you, when they pierce the middle, what happens? You change because you see it, and you can't not see it because the arrow of truth has passed directly through your eye. You can't not see it. And the balm of compassion is right there to heal the destruction that the arrow brings. This is natural healing. This is how nature heals. This is the pattern of healing that is within nature, within you, within the society, within the earth, within the galaxy, within the universe. This same healing principle, the balm of compassion, is within the seed of destruction. This is what is happening. This is what is happening. Yes, Fortune. You're welcome, Nancy. We must, as the spear tip of this thing, we must be aware of this level. All of you guys must transcend the TDS syndromes, the reactive syndromes that have kept us ignorant. They keep you ignorant because they keep you on the surface. They keep you taken by the costume. Stop that. Stop that. If you are going to be a light to others, you must see through the costumes that they don't see. And they see the surface narrative, and they're trying to take the surface narrative apart, and they're caught in the surface narrative. They're going to stay in the surface narrative, just like the Levant, still obsessed with monotheism out of the ancient Israelites 2,000 years later. No growth. Costume obsession. No inner growth. There's no intangible there, man. That's a narrative. That's a play coming out of the Israelites, out of Nazareth, out of those ancient monotheisms. It's a play, and there's no growth available there. You stay on the stage the rest of your life. You never leave the stage. You're caught. You're caught in the play. You're caught in all the statements and sayings and things they're telling you that you believe and you can't resist. You're caught. And like a juggler, the authority is just juggling you. And there you are, just getting juggled. That's been society. That's why we haven't grown. We've been juggled, and everybody's caught in the juggle. It's a real thing. It's a real thing. It's a real thing. Because of complicity. If the parasitical overlords feed our life energy, why force depopulation over and lower the birth rates? To control you. To control you. To destroy you. To destroy you by your own willingness. That's what Satanism loves more than anything, is when you yourself destroy yourself, because there's nothing in this world, this universe, that can destroy you but you yourself. Through your poor beliefs, believing lies, believing terrible things about yourself, believing in heaven and hell, believing in the egregores. You do it to yourself. And that's exactly what Satanists want. That's Satanism. When the individual destroys themselves by their own accord, by their own complicity. And the person that waits for a savior is the one that's destroying themselves because they're waiting to be saved. You didn't come to this planet to wait for someone to come and save you. That's not why you came here. You didn't come here to serve an agenda. That's not why you came here. You didn't come here to obey. That's not why you're here. You are not here to obey. You are not here to do as you're told. That's not why you came here. You get it? And until you realize this, through seeing the deeper sense, you're going to stay there, asking permission, thinking that you're a slave sinner, thinking that you're a dirty slime generated chance, believing it and carrying it out. Because a sinner acts like a sinner. A carbon generator, a person who thinks that they're unworthy, acts like it. How? They go pay taxes thinking it's going to save their problem. The Christian goes to the cross thinking if they ask for forgiveness, it's going to solve their problem. No, it won't. No, it won't, any more than paying taxes is going to solve the climate agenda. Wake up. Yes, rampant everywhere. Okay, good. We are kicking off here today. Let's get into some Zen, shall we? Oh, yeah. I'm on fire tonight. Here we go. Tonight, the Way of Zen, the Course of Nature. It is Saturday, March 28th, 2026. We open with a beautiful lecture from Dr. Campbell. We have been talking about that since, and now we are going to get into some Zen. One of my all-time favorite things in the world. Now, today we are entering into part 2. And in case you didn't know it, part 2 is the beginning of the second phase in this book. And part 2 is a turning the page, a building upon what we have been learning, what we have been learning in the way of Zen. And we've been learning all the basics. And what the whole point of the first part is for basically everyone to get wide-eyed and like, wow, this is amazing. These are radical ideas. These are radical considerations. And it kind of is unsettling. You know, it's thinking differently. It's a little bit like what's happening right now. It's a bit unsettling. You got to kind of see a bigger picture to see through and to see the larger picture. And so that's what part 2 is going to be doing. It's going to be building on this old, these ways of understanding the world that we learned in part 1 and build it into part 2. Now let's read together. The point, this is page 115. The point is not to make an effort to silence the feelings and cultivate bland indifference. It is to see through the universal illusion that what is pleasant or good may be wrestled from what is painful or evil. Now follow. It was a first principle in Taoism that when everyone recognizes beauty as beautiful, there is already ugliness. That, you got it? You can stumble on that one. You can stumble. Deeper sense, now follow. When everyone recognizes beauty as beautiful, there is already ugliness. There's the seed. There's the seed of the opposite within the eye of beauty. You follow? When everyone recognizes goodness as good, there is already evil, because we are in a comparing situation, a contrasting situation. Differences. We are not in a war situation, one beating the other. We're in a differences, a contrasting situation. Everything has the seed of its own destruction within it. So all good also has bad within it. All bad also has good within it. That's the lesson that you learn. The bad that's in the good is the complacency that comes from the good. Winning it all and accomplishment. Okay, I've done it. Now you have to have a new seed of impetus, you see. That seed of impetus is that destruction within that goodness. You are in a wonder, friend. Start thinking like such. To be and not to be arise mutually. Difficult and easy are mutually realized. Long and short are mutually contrasted. High and low are mutually posited. Before and after are in mutual sequence. You see? We are in a contrasting wonder. To see this is to see, this is the knife in the stomach. Are you ready? To see this is to see that good without evil is like up without down, and that to make an ideal of pursuing the good, tying yourself into your good deeds, right, is like trying to get rid of the left by turning consistently to the right. One is therefore compelled to go in circles. Follow the logic as we unfold this. The logic of this is so simple that one is tempted to think that it is oversimple. You see, oversimplified, but it's not. The temptation is all the stronger because it upsets the fondest illusion of the human mind, which is that in the course of time, everything may be made better and better. For it is the general opinion that were this not possible, the life of man would lack all meaning and incentive. Do you see the deeper principle? The only alternative to a life of constant progress is felt to be a mere existence, static and dead, so joyless and inane that one might as well commit suicide. The very notion of this only alternative, meaning I just might as well commit suicide. I can't improve, right? The very notion of this only alternative shows how firmly the mind is bound in a dualistic pattern. How hard is it to think in any other terms than good or bad or a muddy mixture of the two? And this is being caught in the dualism, the one-sidedness, seeing the president as just a chump, an idiot, a moron who's doing no good whatsoever. Okay, well, you're limited to that perspective. In other words, you've made yourself into a chump because you're seeing just the surface illusion. You've become the very thing you're projecting. Here we are back into the psychology. You want to see the psychology? Here it is. Show it to you. Here it is. You're projecting. You're projecting your own frustrations, wishes, and prohibitions in your subconscious out into the innocent world, and you are infecting others right there on the right. We just studied the psychology today. Today. Look how applicable it is to those who are still seeing the surface. You see, you're seeing projections. You're not seeing reality. Reality is past the surface illusion. If you're caught in the surface illusion, you're just as ignorant as that surface. No substance, no density, no content in there. The hallowed crown of the king. We covered that also, remember? Here. This. The hallowed crown of the king. As if this flesh which walls about our life were brass impregnable and humored thus. I'm showing it to you. I love doing this. I was made to do this. I was born to do this. Read first. The perfect way, Tao, is without difficulty, save that it avoids picking and choosing. Only when you stop liking and disliking, there it is, nonplussed. Only when you stop liking and disliking will all be clearly understood, as I've been saying that now for 2 hours. Or we had a lecture for an hour that said it, and now I've been saying it for an hour. A split hair's difference it is. And isn't it a split hair's difference between being caught in the illusion and seeing through it? That's piercing the membrane. That's piercing the membrane. That little tiny difference that lifts the side of the tent up to show you the truth. And heaven and earth are set apart. If you want to get the plain truth, be not concerned. This is Taoism. Be not concerned with right and wrong. Shall I read that again in regards to the morality I said was cracked when you have to make the impossible decision? Right? Be not concerned with right and wrong. The conflict between right and wrong is the sickness of the mind. Right there. Right there in front of you, friend. Zen, Taoism, applicable to right now, exactly what we have been talking about. This is a quote from the Tao from thousands of years ago, and look how applicable it is to right now, today. But unfathomable. It's beyond belief, this stuff. The point is not to make an effort to silence the feelings and cultivate bland indifference, right? Don't want to numb yourself out. That's not what I mean when I say nonplussed. I'm not saying numbing. I'm saying you're so in the pocket and so see through it that you remain in the space of indifference through knowledge. That's the bodhisattva that goes into duality to become, to integrate the duality and transcend it. Same exact picture. Same. Identical. It is to see through the universal illusion that what is pleasant or good may be wrestled from what is painful or evil. There it is. The illusion of significant improvement arises. Now here's where we're going to get to a rub here. This is going to be fun. The illusion of significant improvement arises in moments of contrast, as when one turns from the left to the right on a hard bed. The position is better, quote unquote, so long as the contrast remains. So long as the contrast remains. But before long, the second position begins to feel like the first. So one acquires a more comfortable bed and, for a while, sleeps in peace. Right? You remember doing that. But the solution of the problem, here it is. The solution of the problem leaves a strange vacuum in one's consciousness, a vacuum soon filled by the sensation of another intolerable contrast. And here it is. The juggling of life, hitherto unnoticed, and just as urgent, just as frustrating as the original problem of the hard bed. Is that not the picture of politics and religion? Solve one problem only to start another one, right? You get saved, you're going to heaven, but now you got this problem is that you're in an opposite mindset of everyone else on the earth that doesn't think like you. You're caught in the illusion. You're playing the game. You're playing the game. In the opening of this pivotal section titled Empty and Marvelous, Alan launches part 2 on principles and practice, quoting a Zen poem to establish the foundational insight that the perfect way, Tao, is without difficulty, except for the human habit of picking and choosing. Picking and choosing. The one who's trying to hold the ball, not realizing holding the ball, you're behind it, friend. Sorry, not realizing that when you are not holding the ball, you are behind it. You follow, and picking and choosing is attempting. You see, it's trying. You don't hold the ball by trying. You hold the ball by being. Being is the person who knows, who sees through it. They're not chasing the ball, they're holding it. The person who's trying is fumbling, is juggling the ball. They're trying. You can never hold the ball if you're trying. You never hold the ball if you're trying. The ball is held instinctually, running not off of the sensation, but the instinct within yourself. That's the heart. It's the gut mind. We saw that here. Heart is the gut mind. Sixth sense, intuition. The one who is intuitive holds the ball. The one who acts off sensation is behind the ball. You must have a mixture of the two. You don't want to be one or the other. Remember, you're in a contrasting world. Be appropriate to that world. Be both the intuitive and the sensitive. You're sensitive in the sense of being relative. You're intuitive in that you sense what's coming. This is the balanced individual. They're not checked out. They're completely checked in. And they're so checked in that they're intuiting the future by the sense of the gut. And then the person who is the sensation oriented, which should be half of you also, is relative to the room they're in. They know all the exits. They know all the entrances. They know everyone that's in there. They're present and aware, relative. The sensational person. Do you see? They're in tune with their senses. And the person is to be both. The balanced person is both. Watts stresses that this is not a call to cultivate bland indifference or silence feelings, but a radical seeing through of the illusion that good can be separate from evil. And there's the deeper insight. You cannot separate good from evil, pleasant from painful. These also go together, like trying to have up without down. The reader must focus here on Watts's emphasis that dualistic thinking is the sickness of the mind. The sickness of the mind, as this sets the entire tone for Zen, as liberation from relativity's trap, demanding immediate attention to how opposites arise mutually. There it is again. I just elucidated that to you 10 minutes ago, as echoed in the Tao Te Ching quote. The illusion of significant improvement arises in moments of contrast, as when one turns from left to the right on a hard bed. Do you see? The position is only better because it's a changed position, but the core hasn't changed. And that is what that illustration is rendering to you. Pro tip: differences only exist in the mind. The grass is not always greener on the other side, in the sense that all positives carry the seed of negative within them. Beautiful. Pages 115 to 117 claim that the logic of reality feels deceptively simple, yet upends humanity's fondest illusion of endless progress, where life seems meaningful only through consistent selection of the good. What is the religious impetus? What is it? Consistent selection of the good, and thinking that that's going to bring you to the place of balance and equilibrium. How can it? You're always just looking for the good. You're imbalanced. You're clinging to the ropes of your good deeds while tying yourself down with the chains of your misfortune. You're getting nowhere. You're getting nowhere. You're chasing good and you're avoiding evil. You're getting nowhere. This is the trapped individual, trapped by their own ignorance. Watts illustrates the absurdity with the hard bed example. Comfort exists only in contrast to discomfort. So every solution creates a new vacuum, leading to a circular pursuit, a mental recidivism, like fleas on a hot griddle. They can jump to flee the heat, but they will always come back down. And that's the person who is always sinking for the next thing that's going to save them, for the next thing that's going to distract them, for the next thing that's going to make everything okay, right? They're always sinking that. And guess what? They always end up coming back down in the hot pan because they're not addressing the problem. They're seeking the good. They're not seeking balance. They are literally, think about it, they're literally seeking imbalance, literally seeking it, running after the good. You are seeking imbalance. And while thinking you're doing the right thing, you're doing the opposite of what you should be doing. The opposite. The opposite isn't running to the bad. The opposite is seeking balance, seeing through the good, seeing through the bad, so that you stay in the state of equilibrium, not anxiety. That's why the anxious person who is chasing being non-anxious will stay anxious, because they're chasing non-anxiety. They're trying. The act of trying is anxiety. You must release, not try. Stop trying. This will relieve your anxiety, right? If you want to see the truth in the world, stop just trying to seek the good. Stop just trying to seek a savior, a guru, an answer. It's one-sided. Seek for holism, the complete picture, which is not seeking. It's simply discovering. Do you see? This stuff is timeless. The major point Watts hammers here is that choosing is inherently absurd because there is no independent good to grasp. And this we're going to get into a rub here in a minute. Consider, to succeed is always to fail, as success unleashes the desire for more success. Do you see it? The hidden evil inside success. This dissolves the fantasy of significant improvement while preparing one for a Zen starting point. Get into the feel of relativity. Now follow this, watch this unfold. Page 17, empty and marvelous. The sensation of discomfort, just as an image, is visible to the eye only by reason of a contrasting background. The good and evil, the pleasant and the painful, are so inseparable, so identical, that in their difference, like the two modes of a coin, that shoot, and I forgot. There, I can see it now. Got it. The good and the evil, the pleasant and the painful, are so inseparable, so identical in their difference, that the two sides of a coin, like the two sides of a coin, that fair is foul and foul is fair. Do you see that? This is when we get into the fatalistic, and you got to make sure that you don't fall into the fatalistic view in seeing that this identical difference leads to this idea that fair is foul and foul is fair. Now watch. Zen does not, for this reason, take the attitude that it is so futile to eat when hungry that one may as well starve, nor is it so inhumane as to say that when we itch, we should not scratch. Disillusionment with the pursuit of the good, the disillusionment that goes with the pursuit of the good, because it's imbalanced, does not involve the evil of stagnation as its necessary alternative, for the human situation is like that of fleas on a griddle. None of the alternatives offer a solution, for the flea who falls must also jump, and the flea who jumps must also fall. Choosing is absurd because there is no choice. I think it was taking this, what could be seen as a fatalistic view, that eventually caught Alan up into alcoholism. This is the part of Zen that must be measured and delineated. And that is exactly what I am attempting here. Next slide. Follow. Key slide. Here we go. To the dualistic mode of thought, it will therefore seem that the standpoint of Zen is that of fatalism as opposed to free choice. When Mu Chao is asked, we dress and eat every day, and how do we escape from having to put on clothes and to eat food? And he answered, we dress, we eat. I don't understand, said the monk. If you don't understand, put on your clothes and eat your food. Do you see? On being asked how to escape from the heat, another master directed the questioner to the place where it is neither hot nor cold. There's your practicality. When asked to explain himself, he replied, in summer we sweat, in winter we shiver. Do you follow? Building directly on the ideas of philosophical relativity, which is that, the idea that all success or failures in one sense or another aren't either. Aren't either. That removes your fatalism right there. Aren't either. It's not a fatalistic view. It's both. It's both the eliminating and the fatalistic view. You must have the middle perspective in order to not see it as fatalism. You must have the middle perspective. That's what's pointing out here. In one sense, okay, here we go. Let's start again. Building directly on the ideas of philosophical relativity and the idea that all success or failures in one sense or another aren't either, Allen next confronts the misconception that Zen equates to fatalism or stagnation. Ironic considering the warning previous page that I gave. He uses master dialogues like we dress, we eat, and in the summer we sweat and winter shiver as responses to show that Zen rejects both free choice dualism and helpless submission. Helpless submission is a hard to avoid mental rub in Zen, and we will conquer it right now in this statement. Watts emphasizes that there is no separate someone who sweats because it is hot. The sweating is the heat rendering itself. That's the eye-opening moment. That's the arrow through the eye, right there, right there. That's the moment. Sweating is the heat rendering itself. In other words, there's not heat and then a body sweating because of heat. The heat and the sweating mutually arise. These are not separate events. These are not separate things. One seed. One seed. This frees from the subject-object duality. Zen reverses common sense. It marks a shift where understanding is revealed. Here's the key. Not as passive endurance, but a non-dual standpoint. And that's that non-dual. The non-dual, see, you recognize sweating, you recognize heating, but the non-dual sees these two supposed things as one event, one emerging event. It's so important to follow that. Each must internalize this to escape the puppet of circumstance illusion, which is the fatalism. Because you can begin to think, you see the fatalism in this? You begin to think it's fatalism because if it's all one event, well, you can't change the event. It's going to happen no matter what your choice. That's the fatalistic view. It will happen no matter your choice, the fatalistic view. You're doomed. Because the seed of all your good deeds will also carry destruction with them. What good is it to choose good then? What good is it to choose bad? It has the seed of the other in it. You're going backwards either way. That's the fatalistic view. In other words, I can't make a good choice. I can't make the right choice. Because it doesn't matter what choice I make, it's always going to have destruction within it. You have to see through it. And the deeper wisdom is here. Can you change? Here's the hint. You ready? Here's your hint. To remain stable, you really need to follow this. To remain stable is to refrain from trying to separate yourself from a pain because you know that you cannot. Let me make this so I can see it better. Here. Running away from fear is fear. Fighting pain is pain. Trying to be brave is to be scared. If the mind is in pain, the mind is pain. The thinker has no other form than his thought. There is no escape. Can you change? Can you change? You guys aren't going to like this answer. You ready? Can you change? What do you think? Let's go to chat real quick at the bottom. Can you change? I'm watching. Yes or no? Yes or no? Can you change? Can you change? Come on, guys. Come on, give me an answer. I want to see it. Chuck student, no. Bingo! Unbelievable! There it is! The first answer. Here it is. Watch. Watch. Ready? Here, I'll take off. Watch. 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 Ready? You mutually arise. Perspective is widened to grow. You see? Change isn't a choice. Here it is. Change isn't a choice. Choice is doing. It's perspective. You can change from a change of perspective. not by doing. You cannot change by thought. You cannot change by putting together a plan. You change through changing perspective. It happens automatically, right? You find out the story of someone who is hurting and is asking for money. When they initially asked you for the money, you wouldn't give it to them. When you find out their story, you do. Perspectivism. You changed your mind, but you didn't think about it. You changed through your compassion because you heard, you observed, you were present in the moment when you became aware of their backstory. And that changed you. Awareness changed you, not choice. This is so important in the Great Awakening. Awareness changes you, not choice. Not choice. Awareness. The choice is then what? Automatic. It's not a choice. There is no choice being made. Chuck Student was right. Chuck Student was right. You see? Here it is. Awareness. I know it's a trick question. I'm not trying to upset you or say, look or anything. I'm not mocking or anything like that. I'm saying it's the wonder of the world can trick, can make you think I can make a change if I choose to do that. No, you'll make a change when you see the deeper perspective. Then you'll make a change. It's not a choice. Is love a choice? Love is not a choice. You can't choose to love. That's why telling you must love your neighbor, it's a bad starting point. You don't choose to love. You see the deeper sense in them, and that changes you. It's a non-choice. How about them apples? I know it's a tough one. I see a ton of yeses here. I know it's a tough one. Here, this was good. Here, not by trying, Josh. Well done. Well done. Yes, clueless. Nailed it. You can evolve. Yes. Yes, here's a good point. Wonderful point here. How do you change when you are changed? That is brilliant. Diana's breath, you are brilliant. What a statement from chat. Statement of the night right there. How do you change when you are changed? Thank you for that. Do you see the insight? What's a crock? Spiritual ascension. Tell me, what's a crock? What's a crock? Spiritual ascension. So trick question. Yes. Yes. That is the point of Zen. Because what's the gesture? How does the gesture show you the deeper image? The trick, the joke, the unsensible statement. Do you see do you see my madness? Do you see the logic and reasoning of my madness? Do you see it? You see it? The only way to get you to change is essentially tricking you. You see the deeper truth because you didn't intend it. You don't like, okay, I'm now going to find the deeper truth. That's not how it works. Like, it's like, like you suddenly see it. Okay. That's not trying, but yet it's huge change. Okay. Good. Yeah. It's a double standard. We are both the king and the Illuminati is the king, because who's been running the world? The Illuminati, with the mind of the people with egregores. So we actually are the king. We've been giving them the throne because if we believe what they've said, we actually are the king. We, the humanity. We are. Trump is just to show you these deeper insights. He's not the king. We are. Because we are the masters, are we not? The human collective determines the human collective direction. And if the human collective is ignorant and asleep, then they will determine their own destruction, like we were going to do. So the human collective has to be awakened. The human collective has to be awakened. Because if the human collective isn't awakened, they continue to choose their own destruction. Ignorant. You see? And in order to change, it's not the choice of the human collective, it's the awareness which brings the change. It doesn't come because the human collective chooses to change everything. The human collective becomes the change, as a generous, brilliant person just noted in chat. You are the change. Good. Fantastic. Love it. Welcome, sir. Glad you are here. Welcome. Here, let's see what 9mm has to say. Welcome, 9mm. I haven't seen you in a while, buddy. Glad you're here. You cannot change who you are born as. That you is always there. Thank you, 9mm. You can deprogram the stuff that happened before your birth, though. Sure. And you can deprogram your life and ideas. Absolutely. Erasing the hard drive is a critical element to psychedelics. Yeah, get to know Alan's spiritual ascension. Yeah, get to know Alan. Okay, shall we keep moving? Let's keep moving. Let's keep moving. Let's go. Let's keep moving. Yes, it is. I just love that insignia you got there. Look at that little logo, man. I just love that so much, man. That brought me to tears the first time I saw that. Okay, here we go. Add to stage. Next slide. Practice 4. But the viewpoint is not fatalistic. It is not simply submission to the inevitability of sweating when it's hot, shivering when it is cold, eating when hungry, and sleeping when tired. Submission to fate, so key here, guys. Submission to fate implies someone who submits, someone who is the helpless puppet of circumstance. And for Zen, there is no such person, you see. There's no such person. And this is what Alan must not have understood completely, because he took his own life. He became an addict. No blame on Alan. It's just simply a perspective. And isn't it amazing that as the guru that he was, with the insight and knowledge that he had, that he still suffered with addiction? That's how hard it is to see these things. Don't become discouraged. This should be an encouragement to all of you, because when you see it more and more deeply, you free yourself from the addictions. And it just may well have been that Alan had a full conception of what he was talking about and fully understood and realized it, but he hadn't actually seen it all the way through, because he was still stuck without alcohol, which eventually killed him. He was still stuck holding, still stuck numbing. No blame. I'm not blaming Alan. I love Alan. There's no blame here. I'm simply trying to make sense, bring a sensibility as to why a man so knowledgeable and so understanding of Zen would still have such an affliction. And this is to encourage you guys, to let you know, even if you know as much as Alan, that doesn't mean it solves your problem. You must see it with the sixth sense, with your inner mind, because that's what brings change. That's what brings the inspiration to change, meaning to grow larger. That's what I mean by change. You're changing because you're growing. You're not doing the same thing again and again and again and again. You're changing, you're growing, you're doing different, you're behaving differently, you're thinking differently, you're becoming. That's what the mature individual does. The child stays in the same loops of pleasure, the same loops of avoidance. They never leave, because they don't have this deeper insight. You as an adult do. And that's why you can change. Okay. We do not sweat because it is hot. The sweating is the heat. It is just as true to say that the sun is light because of the eyes as to say that the eyes see light because of the sun. You see, the viewpoint is unfamiliar because it is our settled convention to think that heat comes first, and then by causality, the body sweats. We talked about that earlier. This shocking and seemingly illogical reversal of common sense may perhaps be clarified by the favorite Zen image of the moon in the water, which we'll look at next slide. The phenomena of moon in the water is likened to human experience. The water is the subject and the moon the object. When there is no water, there is no moon in the water. And likewise, when there is no moon, follow? But when the moon rises, the water does not wait to receive its image. See, it's not passive. The water is not passive. And when even the tiniest drop of water is poured out, the moon does not wait to cast its reflection right there in the water drop. For the moon does not intend to cast its reflection, and the water does not receive its image on purpose. The event is caused as much by the water as by the moon. And as the water manifests the brightness of the moon manifests the clarity of the water. To put it less poetically human, experience is determined as much by the nature of the mind. You see, what do you know? And the structure of its senses, what's your ontology, as by the external objects whose presence the mind reveals what's your experience. See, those things create reality. Men feel themselves to be victims or puppets of their experience because they separate themselves from their minds, thinking that the nature of the mind-body is something involuntary thrust upon them. Continuing with the thought. On pages 18 and 118, 119, Watts introduces the moon in the water. Now here's the elucidation. Image as the clarifying member for the human experience, where water subject and moon object co-arise with the other without intention or waiting. See, there's the non-planning. There's the non-trying. You see, without intention or waiting, it happens of itself so. This is nature. The drop does not wait to reflect the moon, and this is the chapter's core emphasis. Often a person feels trapped inside their body that was, quote unquote, given to them, as if a separate I is the unwilling owner of eyes, ears, nerves, and emotions. Zen asks, who is this I that has a mind? Watts, a feeling of separate mind, a separate mind and I, is pure semantic hypnosis. I and mind mutually arise like trees rendering wind blowing, or the still surface water rendering the moon as it rises. Can you see this? The false tape is repeatedly played in your mind. I have a mind. I have a body. I can try. I can change. You see, these are the tapes we say, until the grammar itself creates the hypnotic illusion of two things, an owner and an owned. Deep. Once you see moon, water, wind, tree mutually, the grammar collapses. There is no I. There is no owner standing apart. The experiencing and the experienced are one event. Again, to refer back to our genius in chat, we are change is the growth. The growth is the change. These are one and the same. These mutually arise. Everything that follows in the chapter, the dropping of the symbolic self, the relativity of voluntary, involuntary, the suchness of the world teeters upon this single shift. Stop imagining a victim, chance happening, who was gifted a sensitive organism, and instead see that the organism and its world, that's you and the world, you and your experience, co-create each other exactly like the moon and water or wind and trees. Grasp this, and the whole sense of subjective isolation begins to disappear before your eyes. This is the pinch point upon which the entire empty and marvelous part 2 teeter-totter. Questions from chat. What do you guys got? Let's go. Bottom, I'm there with you. All caps. Questions to me go in all caps. All caps to me. I'm ready, willing, and able. Spiritual ascension, you're getting busy tonight. Nice. I like it. Any questions to me? All caps. Here we go. Guilt, because Alan kind of knocked off some of his work from DT. He quotes him all the time, and DT Suzuki is a wonderful man, or was. Brilliant. Brilliant. Very helpful. Here we go. No, see, this is metaphor. Okay. This is a great question. I am talking about metaphorically. I'm not talking about science. It's real important you guys understand that. Let me remove this. I'm not talking about going outside and literally seeing this. This is a mind picture. It's real important that when you hear these examples and statements that are given in this book, as well as I use all the time, most often the examples are metaphors. I'm not saying in this here, I'm not saying we're talking about physics and light refracting elements and science from why the moon is reflecting off the lake into your eyes and what are the cones and rods in your eyes to see this moon. No, this is a metaphor. This is a metaphor that life, nature arises of itself. There are no separate events. There are no separate things. Everything is tied into everything else. There is nothing separated. Our planet is tied into a solar system, which is based on gravity from the sun. In other words, our planet is not an isolated event, an isolated thing. It's tied into all of the other structures. Our experience is tied into the material world. And in order to see that world clearly, that material world clearly, you have to see the metaphor that it is expressing. That is the density within it. And unless you can see the metaphor, the density within it, you will remain empty, lacking, needy, because the substance won't be fulfilling you as an individual. Your experience will not be fulfilling because you won't see the deeper sense. You'll become a fatalist. You won't realize there's a larger play, there's a larger experience, there's a larger lesson at work here. So we're not talking science, we're talking metaphors, mind pictures, so that you can see the deeper sense past the science, past the conflict, the supposed conflict, so you'll see the contrast. The wind isn't competing with the trees for space. It's expressing the wonder. The wind and the trees together express the wonder of what is. It's an event unfolding. There is no thing. Yes? Yes. Consciousness is all dimensions. All dimensions. Consciousness is all. There's no word for it. It's important you guys get this. Here. Love your dog, buddy. Everything is this physical world, and spiritual world is layered. Spiritual, okay. The physical world is the densifying, the becoming of the spiritual world. That's the physical world. That's why the physical world doesn't exist. We live in a spiritual wonder. That's what we live in. We live in a spiritual wonder of unfoldment. Okay? The only layers that exist are the ones in your mind. We are in an unfoldment. If you call it hierarchical, you would move closer to linear thinking. Exactly. It's not hierarchy. It's simply powers. It's simply energies expressing themselves in different costumes, at different amplitudes. You see? But it's all the same essence, the same density, the same spiritual enigma. Yeah? Yes? You need to get out of the science and into the metaphor. Let's move on. Let's move on. Maybe you guys will catch on here. Let's move on to the metaphoric aspect. Media assets. Okay. Add a stage. Continuing. Zen asks us to find out who is it that has this mind, and who is it that was and who it was that did not ask to be born before father and mother conceived us. Thence it appears that the entire sense of subjective isolation, of being the one who has given a mind and to whom experience happens, is an illusion of bad semantics, the hypnotic suggestion of repeating wrong thinking. For there is no myself apart from the mind body, which gives structure to my experience. See, the idea of myself is coming out of my experience, my understandings, right? Right? There's nothing there. There's just a realization. It is likewise ridiculous to talk of this mind body as something which is passively and involuntarily given a given structure, a certain structure. It is that structure. And before the structure arose, there was no mind body. Our problem is that the power of thought enables us to construct symbols of things apart from the things themselves. And there it is. There it is. Language does this. Language is spell casting, which is why it causes the construction of symbols of things apart from things themselves, because words are spell casting. It is a means and ways for me to put what is in my mind in your mind. And I do that through words. I cast spells. and those spells enter your ear and enter your mind. That is me. That is the authorities or a guru or whoever is in your life you're experiencing. That's them entering your mind. Enter your mind. Telepathy right there. Right? And this shows you that the structure arose it is that structure. And before the structure arose, there was no mind body. Do you follow? Our problem is that the power of thought enables us to construct symbols of things apart from the things themselves. This includes the ability to make a symbol, an idea of ourselves apart from ourselves right there. Because the idea is so much more comprehensible than the reality. That's the temptation. That's the allure. The symbol is so much more stable than the fact. That's why the person is referring science when I talk about the moon and they're talking about the other side of the planet. It's because they are enwrapping themselves in this the costume rather than the deeper truth, the fact. We learn to identify ourselves with our idea of ourselves. Hence, the subjective feeling of a self which has a mind, of an inwardly isolated subject to whom experiences involuntarily happens. Let's read that again. Hence, the subjective feeling of a self which has a mind, of an inwardly isolated subject to whom experiences involuntarily happen. With its characteristic emphasis on the concrete, Zen points out that our precious ego self is just an idea, useful and legitimate, there's the tool part, enough if seen for what it is, that's the awareness part, but disastrous if identified with our real nature, that's the ignorance part. You see, good and bad are all seated in each other. It's plain as day here. The unnatural awkwardness of a certain type of self-consciousness comes into being when we are aware of conflict or contrast between the idea of ourselves on the one hand and the immediate concrete feeling of ourselves on the other. When we are no longer identified with the idea of ourselves, the entire relationship between subject and object, knower and known, undergoes a sudden and revolutionary change. And here's your pro tip. You are a lens, an aperture, an experiencer through which void, God, nothingness, no thingness views, perceives, and experiences the world. You are a metaphor. You are a dream, right? You are a wonder. You're not any idea that you have in your mind. You're past all of that. You see? And that applies to all things, which is why this is so broad and so complex. Practice 5. The power of thought can create a symbolic self apart from reality, leading to the awkward self-consciousness of identifying with an idea, there it is, with an idea, rather than the concrete mind-body. When this, let's read this here. The idea is so much more comprehensible than the reality. The symbol is so much more stable than the fact. We learn to identify ourselves with our idea of ourselves. Hence, the subjective feeling of a self which has a mind, of an inwardly isolated subject to whom experiences involuntarily happen. With its characteristic emphasis on the concrete, Zen points out that our precious self is just an idea, useful and legitimate enough if seen for what it is, but disastrous if identified with our real nature. The unnatural awkwardness of a certain type of self-consciousness comes into being when we are aware of conflict or contrast between the idea of ourselves on the one hand and the immediate concrete feeling of ourselves on the other. When we are no longer identified with the idea of ourselves, the entire relationship between subject and object, knower and known, undergoes a sudden and revolutionary change. When this identification drops, subject and object become a real mutuality. One discovers, I have no other self than the totality of things of which I am aware. That is key. I have no other self than the totality of things of which I am aware. This shows you why awareness is key in the Great Awakening. What do you know? What do you know? And your awareness, your development, your growth is going to depend on those nutrients Those are the nutrients in the soil that grow you. What have you experienced? What have you learned? What have you learned? What is your wisdom? And this is where you grow. If these things stagnate, meaning you keep believing the same stuff, you keep accepting the same truths, you stay behind the fence line, how much growing are you going to be doing? How much mind expansion are you going to be doing? Pragmatically thinking, you can see the answer. You'll see the answer. And when you see that, that's when you change. You're not going to change when you hear me say, okay, Chuck, on Monday morning, I'm changing my perspective. No, you just go out and experience the change of perspective. And if you experience a deep enough change, you'll change even before Monday. And you won't even have to think about it. You won't have to try, and you won't have to plan, because you'll change your perspective. That's the mature way. That's the mature way. That's what the child doesn't do. That's what the adult does. Pause, absorb this Buddha, invoking the Buddhist metaphor of the net of jewels, that reality is an innate, interconnected web of jewels where each jewel reflects every other jewel plus their reflections. Pause, absorb this revolutionary shift of focus. The notion of getting something out of life collapses here. This marks the heart of Zen's liberation from subjective isolation, lack of meaningful connections or quality relationships, no matter the social network, life, or experiential patterns, the depleted individual. We've talked about that. Practice 6. Empty and Marvelous, page 121. Oddly enough, if we had to decide, we would not be free to decide. We are free to decide because decision happens. You're doing when you decide to decide. When we are free to decide, the decision just happens. You're not free to decide when you're deciding to decide. You're doing, you're trying. Here we are again. There is no try. Change happens through realization. We just decide without having the faintest understanding of how we do it. Exactly. It just happens. In fact, it is neither voluntary nor involuntary. To get the feel of this relativity is to find another extraordinary transformation of our experience as a whole, which may be described in either of two ways. I feel that I am deciding everything that happens, or I feel that everything, including my decisions, is just happening spontaneously. For a decision, the freest of my actions just happens. The freest of my actions just happens. Like hiccups inside me, or a bird singing outside me. Isn't this brilliant, you guys? I love this stuff so much. My God. It would seem then that to get rid of the subjective distinction between me and my experience through seeing that my idea of myself is not myself is to discover the actual relationship between myself and the actual world. And there it is. The individual on the one hand and the world on the other are simply the abstract limits or terms of a concrete reality which is between them, the gray in the middle, as the concrete coin is between the abstract Euclidean opposites. That's right. Euclidean surfaces of two sides. That's the raw surface. This is the scientific term there. Between the abstract Euclidean surfaces of its two sides. Similarly, the real of all inseparable opposites, life and death, good and evil, pleasure and pain, gain and loss, is that between for which we have no words. The transition. The transcendent aspect. Watts here explores the relativity of voluntary and involuntary actions, like breathing, like breath watching, showing that decisions themselves just happen without prior decision. One does not decide to decide. Freedom arises precisely because decision is spontaneous, even the ones whereby you think about it. Ultimately, the decision comes from the gut, the shin, exactly. Like when you do actually decide, it actually comes from the shin because you don't know why you chose that. So you don't know why you have the opinions that you have. That comes out from who you are. Like you don't know why you like blue more than red. Right? You don't know why you like that person more than the other. It's coming from inside you. You're not choosing any of it. It's just coming out of you. Alan renders this on these pages, that when understanding from this perspective, the boundary of the physical body vanishes and all were myself illustrates the transformation. One feels as either deciding everything or everything happening of itself. You see? These correlate. This requires full focus as it reveals the concrete, the correlated reality between abstract opposites deciding everything, dissolving the illusion of an isolated experiencer. Everything happens of itself. The decision is the happening. The decision is the happening. 7. Here on page 122, Watts tackles the superficial permanence of the symbolic self, which is affixed to memories and social roles and makes life feel like a rushing river one tries to clutch. The Matsu Goose dialogue in Dogen's Shogogenzo excerpts about firewood never becoming ashes again and life and death as distinct positions of time, underscores timeless moments when the mind rides the flow without resistance. And that's what we all want, isn't it? That's what we all want, to ride the flow without resistance. The wave of illusion links experiences because it directly answers the pursuit of a promising future for the ego. I'll read Huinan's pro tip in a minute. Man's identification with his idea of himself gives him a spacious and precarious sense of permanence. For this idea is relatively fixed, being based upon carefully selected memories of his past, memories which have a preserved and fixed character, do they not? Social convention encourages the fixity of the idea because the very usefulness of symbols depends upon their stability. Interesting. Convention, therefore, encourages him to associate his idea of himself with equally abstract and symbolic roles and stereotypes, since these will help him form an idea of himself which will be definite and intelligible. But to the degree that he identifies himself with the fixed idea, he has become aware of life as something which flows past him faster and faster as he grows older. As his idea becomes more rigid, more bolstered with memories, you see, the more he attempts to clutch the world, the more he feels it as a process in motion. The relativity of time and motion is one of the principal themes of Dogen's Shobogenzo, where he writes, and this is epic, this is an epic statement. If we were to watch the shore while we were sailing in a boat, we feel that the shore is moving. But if we look closer, nearer to the boat, we know then that it is the boat which moves. Now imagine yourself here. When we regard the universe in confusion of body and mind, we often get the mistaken belief that our mind is constant. See, it's not. The mind is not constant. But if we actually practice Zen and come back to ourselves, we see that this was wrong, leading right to Huinang's pro tip. It is not the wind that moves, it is the flag that moves. Excuse me, it is not the wind that moves, it is not the flag that moves, it is your mind that moves. That is the way to an anxious free life, realizing that. It is not the wind or the flag that is moving. It is not the tree that is blowing in the wind. It is your mind. It is your mind that is moving. This is why it is so hard to get the mind to stop moving. And until the mind stops moving, you will continue to be taken by the events that you experience, by the icons that you see. You must get that thing to stop moving and see all these things as relative. See all these things as self-emergent, as emerging of themselves. And you are simply like the boat out in the ocean, the observer of the wonder. Do you see? And then you participate as your capacity amalgamates, coalesces with what you're observing, the reality that is. And that won't be a choice. You simply will enter into, not because you choose to enter into the space, but because you're compelled. You are pulled magnetized into the space through your gifts, inclinations, different aspects of your character. And if you're in a space of truth, it will pull you into the wonder in a sense that makes sense to you. You see? That's why it's so important to be in your truth in the world as you understand it, because if you're in someone else's truth, you'll be in that world of truth that they have experienced, but it won't relate to you, and you won't see the connections. This is why you must see it for yourself. This is why no one can save you. You must save yourself, because no one can see the world like you do. And the world is a conundrum, so it's different for every person. So there's no one size fits all. These are the deeper truths that keep you from getting caught, that keep you from becoming anxious. Realizing it's simply a matter of giving your life to nature, essentially, meaning the flow, the growth. Let go, because it's the holding that stagnates you and diseases you, frustrates you. It's the spell binding of the words and egregores that keep you stagnant and not growing, and therefore getting sicker and sicker. In other words, being taken more and more and more by your experience, being crushed, here it is, by the ball, because you're not holding it. You're trying to hold it, and that's why you're crushed by it. Because you're trying to change, and there is no try with change. It's a perspective. It's automatic. It happens of itself so, in the same way the seed germinates. It happens of itself so. It doesn't choose to. It becomes the plant from the seed. You're the same way. You become the human from the soul. Same thing. Same idea. You are in a space of becoming. You are growing. That's what you are. A growth, growing amidst the growing world, the growing nature. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I love this. Okay. How are we doing on time? Oh, God, we're doing awesome. Okay. Moving further into chapter 5, Watts deepens the critique of time-bound progress, noting that measuring worth by longevity or security prevents living in the only reality, the present. That's why when you put on the armor of God, you are not living in the present, you are living in a fear state. Do you follow? You're not living in reality, you're living in fear, which is why you're putting on that armor and thinking you need it. In other words, you're not present. You're not present praying that prayer. You are not present. You're in the past, you're in the future, whatever. You're not now, which is why you're saying that and why you're thinking that, because you're relating to forms. You're not relating through change. You're not relating through growth. You're relating through fixation, fixed assets, fixed things, fixed securities, fixed assurances. That's the way to madness. That's how you become a mad person. You try and stay fixated in the midst of the change, which is the world. Which is the world. It's a growing organism, just like you. And when this mind, you see, when this mind becomes fixated, right? It doesn't go with the flow and allow the change and go with it and coalesce. Anxiousness happens, resistance happens, unawareness happens. Do you see? Ignorance. Brilliant. Dogen's fish and bird metaphor from the Shobogenzo beautifully illustrates that life creates itself in the water or sky without prior measurement. To seek the end first is to miss the way entirely. This is a major, what's the model of the Christian? This is a major Zen emphasis Watts wants the reader to internalize. The life of Zen begins precisely where there is nothing further to seek. And what is the Christian always doing? They're seeking after God. They're seeking after identity. They're seeking for forms. They're seeking for forgiveness. They're asking permission. They're seeking approval. The mindset of a slave, the opposite mindset of Zen. As goals like the good without bad or a tomorrow that never comes are but symbolic deceptions, the Maya that keep one from experiencing now, which is what I just said. I just said that. Now is our most precious gift, as it renders the only truth one can truly experience, recognize, integrate, and become, because becoming is not a choice. You simply become. There's no beginning, there's no end. You are in a state of becoming. Welcome to the universe. There's no beginning, there's no end. It is a state of becoming. And what are you? You are exactly that, because you're a nature creature. You come out of nature. You are the offspring, the prodigy of nature. So, of course, as a nature creature, right? Understanding will come through the change that nature is, the change that you are. Choosing only resists the change. It's trying to make the seed grow by pulling the plant out of the seed and stretching it. That's what you're doing to yourself. When you try to grow through words, through forms, you're forcing the issue. The plant must be allowed to grow. You also must be allowed to mature. And it's perspectivism, the perspective that's going to grow you. In the same way, water, that of change, is what grows the plant. Perspective. You try, you're stretching the plant, you're going to pull it apart and kill it, just like you do to yourself when you try. Okay. Dogen is here trying to express, top right, the strange sense of timeless moments which arises when one is no longer trying to resist the flow of events, the peculiar stillness and self-sufficiency of the succeeding instants when the mind is, as it were, going along with them and not trying to arrest them. What a great term, not trying to arrest them. A similar view is expressed thus by Matsu. A sutra says, it is only a group of elements which come together to make this body. When it arises, only these elements arise. When it ceases, only these elements cease. When these elements arise, I do not say, I am arising. When they cease, I do not say, I am ceasing. So too, with our former thoughts. I mean, think about yourself. You don't think you die. You just think you go on, of course. So too then, with our former thoughts, later thoughts, and intervening thoughts or experiences. The thoughts follow one another without being linked together. Each one is absolutely tranquil. Yes. When a fish swims, he swims on, and there is no end to the water. When a bird flies, he flies on, and there is no end to the sky. From the most ancient times, there was never a fish who swam out of the water, nor a bird who flew out of the sky. Yet when the fish needs just a little water, he uses just a little. And when he needs a lot, he uses a lot. Thus, the tips of their heads are always at the outer edge of their space. If ever a bird flies beyond that edge, he dies. And so also with the he dies. And so also with the fish. Now here's the crux. Here it is. From the water, the fish makes his life, and from the sky, the bird. But this life, here, listen. But this life is made by the bird and the fish. At the same time, the bird and the fish are made by life. Just put yourself in this picture, friend. Thus, there are the fish, the water, and life, and all three create each other. They mutually arise. Pro tip, we don't grow from laws we read, from obediences we serve, or from doctrines we memorize. We grow from what we experience. We mutually arise. That is what this is saying. What do you guys think? Let's go to media assets real quick. I got plenty of time. Let's do some comments. Write your comments in all caps. What did Fortune write that shows pain? Yes, and perspective is the key. You see, because if your perspective is wide enough, right, you only integrate that which is conducive to your growth, just like a plant only integrates the minerals in the soil that are integral to its growth. I love nature's patterns. They're everywhere. Here. Chuck. Hi, Verbo. Chuck, if you were a Zen master news reporter, What would be your world update for tonight? I'm doing it, friend. I'm doing it, man. I'm doing it. Tonight's my world update. I do it every Saturday. Hey, thanks, Spiritual Ascension. I really like your participation. I like it. And I like it that you just don't take my words for it. You challenge me. I like it. I like it. I like that. No, I'm not an ascended Zen master. I wish. Not so much. But I will grow. I will continue to grow. Just like you guys. We all are in this together. Nobody above each other. There is nobody above each other. We're all in this together. We all grow together. Here, what's this, Fortune? When I cut my hair. Love you, Chuck. This is a great night. Gaining such perspective. Awesome. Awesome. I hope you didn't cut your hair, but if you did, I'm sure it looks great, Fortune. Here we are. Plants move towards the light. Yes. 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 And that is what you do too. That's why when you're around something authentic and true and you know it, you want to be around it, right? When you're around an individual or you want to be around someone who has these deeper understandings and can show you the deeper truth, you want to be around them because you can see it in them. You see that awareness in them inside yourself, and you know, if I can relate to them somehow, if I can somehow be in their orbit and just be exposed to some of their light, I then also will become more of a bright light to others, right? And that's attracted to human beings, man. If you want to attract a human being, shine that kind of light. Shine the kind of light that can't be resisted, the light of love, empathy, compassion, tolerance, allowance, and people will want to be around you. They'll gravitate to you because the world is filled with so many haters. It's filled with so many people that have an agenda and want you to think like they do. The person that truly loves you wants you to think for yourself. They don't want you thinking like them. If I truly love you, I don't want you thinking anything like me. I want you thinking for yourself. And however that makes you humane, however that brings about your humanness, brilliant, brilliant. But because I love you, I don't want you to think just like me. That's why on this group and in these nights, I'm always open to your thoughts, resistances, conjectures, because this is how we grow. Because this is how we grow. Heck yeah, Matt. It's a rush, isn't it? It's a rush. It's a real thing. Like this show on Saturday and our Friday Zooms, it's a rush, bro. It's a rush. Anybody who's paying attention right now and in Zoom, it's a rush. I finish these nights tonight. I might get exhausted in my voice and in my mental, but I get out like the night ends. I am on a high for about 6 to 7 hours. I don't go to bed till like 4 a.m. on Saturday nights. I'm on such a rush. And it's because of you guys and statements like that, Matt. Statements like that. Here. Exactly. And I told you guys so many times, we grow better together. When we are together, we grow more efficiently, more effectively, more lucidly, more quickly. Here. What's up, Jay? Chuck, should I feel bad for not being able to awaken my... No. Not being able to awaken my family, close friends? No. Who are still blinded by religion? No, that's not your job. It's not your job. Nothing I say or do can get through their minds. Exactly. And here's the beauty in it, Jay. You're exactly right. Nothing you can say or do is going to save them because you're not their savior. They save themselves. The best thing you can do to help them is to shine your light, to just be a source of love, emergence, acceptance, tolerance, humility. Become that. Become that, not by choice, but from your love for others and your compassion for their plight, and knowing, identifying that you yourself could become a light to them if you yourself awakened further, if you yourself saw a deeper and deeper truth. Your light would naturally pour out. It's not a decision. That's why I've said from the beginning with my Saturday nights, this is a night for awakening. That's our main concern. Consciousness expansion and awakening. That's our main concern on Saturday nights and Friday Zoom. Consciousness expansion, because that is what is going to open the empathy, compassion, and love from people, because they will see a larger and larger and larger world. And that brings compassion to you because you see yourself in that world and you see other people with you in that world also suffering. in many ways that you likely suffered yourself before you awakened. And that causes empathy to come out of you, man. Because you see another suffering and you only want to help. And a wise person knows, I can't help them by telling, I help them by showing, rendering that light to them. That's how I help them. So you're not going to win them over by winning an argument. That's the funniest thing about religion and fighting in religion. It's like none of you folks are going to wake up fighting over religion, fighting over spirituality. Religion and spirituality is not enlivened through a fight. It's enlivened through balance, through coalescing, through joining, gathering together. This is where spiritual growth comes, not from a winner or a loser. Yes. Yes, brilliant. Brilliant question. Brilliant question. Yeah, brilliant question, Iverbo. I love your presence here, friend. Love it. Love it. Yeah, isn't it awesome? The awareness, consciousness expanding pool is the most righteous pool you can possibly swim in as a human. It doesn't get better than that. Awareness and once you get on the key to the import and profundity that awareness and expansion brings to you, you realize, oh my God, this is the food the controllers never wanted me eating. This is why they fed you nothing but lies for your meals. Nothing but lies. Because they never wanted you eating the meals that expand your consciousness. Because what happens, man? You stop obeying. You stop asking permission. You stop staying within the bounds. And it doesn't happen because you choose. You're compelled. I left the church not because I was compelled, because what I did was insane. If you would have looked at what I was doing when I left the church, you'd have said, Chuck, you're a freaking madman. And I was, because I was compelled. The choice wasn't mine. The choice was realization, which was, if I stay here, I'm a hypocrite because I have seen deeper than what this place shows me. And if I stay here, I'm just a freaking coward. I'm a coward. That's realization. That's not a choice. That's realization. And I realized after I had a 2-hour discussion with one of the principal counselors there and completely destroyed his ontology with simply awareness, it was like, what am I doing here? Why am I wasting my time here? I'm only leading people astray. I couldn't live with myself. That's not a choice. That's love. Love for myself and love for others. I'm not a coward. I'm not a hypocrite. So I'm not going to be a hypocrite to others, and I'm not going to be a coward myself. I'm leading. And it's not a choice. You see? And if you saw what unfolded in my life from that choice, which it wasn't, from that being compelled, you would think for the first 10 years you made the wrong decision, Chuck. But here's the fact, my friend. I am here today, and I would not be here today if I hadn't made that insane decision, if I wasn't compelled in that way. I would still be at the church. I would still be serving false gods. I would still be leading others astray if I stayed. So what you then can see is when you follow your heart, when you follow that which compels you, and you stay that course, despite the pain that will follow that movement, you see what can happen on the other side. You can become a light to others. You avail yourself to be a light, because you're not going to be a light to others living in someone else's religion, living in someone else's conclusion, living in someone else's world, namely the church. You'll never be a light. You'll never be a light, because your light comes from within, and what is within you has nothing to do with religion, has nothing to do with choices, has everything to do with equating, has everything to do with realizing. Do you see? And it is these deeper perspectives which bring about the changes which are not a choice. The changes, the greatest changes I made in my life were not choices. When I was told I had cancer, it wasn't even a choice that I would disobey all Western medical doctors. Wasn't even a choice. It was a conviction. It was from my heart, from my awareness and knowing what that stuff does to people, what chemo does to people, what the Western sciences do to people when it comes to serious disease. For me, it was a non-choice. Non-choice. Not even going to go down that path. Like it doesn't even exist. It's a dead end. It's nothing for me. Will not heal me. I must heal myself. So you leave the farm. And that can be a real devastating decision. And for me, it was. Because I chose to fight cancer that way. It took a lot more arduous of a trip to get to the other side. And I actually, to heal, it requires long-term, because you don't get cancer overnight. It's a process. You don't get psychologically deranged overnight. It's a process, and there's a time frame of healing that must take place. So awakening doesn't just happen because you want it to. It happens because you realize, and it might take you a long time to realize. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. I'll get back to questions in a sec. Next page. Here. 9, practice 9, the 2 principles. In the words of Lin Chi, if a man seeks the Buddha, that man loses the Buddha. From the water, the fish makes his life, and from the sky, the bird. But this life is made by the bird and the fish. At the same time, the bird and fish are made by life. Thus, there are the fish, the water, and life, and all 3 create each other because they're all one. They're not separate. Yet, if there is a bird who first wanted to examine the size of the sky, or a fish who first wanted to examine the extent of the water, and then they try to fly or swim, they will never find their own ways in the sky or the water. Do you see? And this is the practical example of how humans entangle themselves with thoughts. Do you see? If the bird was thinking about it, do you see how inappropriate the bird will become? Because the bird doesn't realize that they create life by flying in the sky, just like you don't realize you create life by living your experience. And so you don't give it away. Do you see? You hold to it. You hold to it because you don't realize this is what is bringing you life. The growth, the inevitable change, this is what brings you life. You're not really living when you find the perfect space, the perfect income, the perfect friends, the perfect everything, and you just stay in that little pocket. You just stay in that little pocket of happiness and joy, and you got everything worked out, and you got it all figured out, everything is fixed. There's no fulfillment there. There's no fulfillment. There's no life there. That's a dead life. There's no change there. Life comes from change. How do you know the plant is dead? It stops growing. It stops making leaves. It's not green anymore. It's dead. And it's the same thing with the human life. If you're not having new experiences, if you're not thinking new thoughts, if you're not challenging yourself physically, some kind of program or something, if you're not challenging your relationships and those around you, are you really living? Seriously, are you really living? Or are you just existing? Good stuff to think about. Transitioning now, Watts declares emphatically that Zen is not self-improvement or becoming a Buddha, quoting Lin Chi, that if a man seeks the Buddha, that man loses the Buddha. You see, if you're trying to see it, you've already lost the way. The true nature is already Buddha. In other words, nothing special. The Buddha was not something on a stick. He was just another form like you and me. And really, folks, it's really the truth. It's really the truth. Stop getting ideas of hierarchy in your mind. Stop that. The Buddha is just like you and me. Jesus just like you and me. Stop making him a God man. Stop making these forms something that they're not. They're images of you. They're profundities of you. They're aspects of you. And just simply see through them to become and emerge. Don't be taken by them, and you can grow. You stagnate yourself when you see them as a form and as something to worship, something to bow before, something to strive to. You've missed the point at that point. Missed it entirely, in fact. Growth is in the change. Growth is in the release, letting go of life. And what comes next? What's the profundity that will come out? Just like me, I let go of my church life, and now I'm living in the profundity. And right now on Saturday nights, you guys see how we change. I just made a major change today. with the difference of the beginning of the show, and we'll make more changes in the future. I'll do different things, changing completely, and we'll keep doing that in Zoom. We'll cover different subjects. We'll keep going. We are not going to focus on one thing. That's why it's so important to not focus in on just one person on the internet for where you're getting information and new ideas. You need a variety. You need an entourage, because this keeps you growing. These are all minerals. You can grow in different ways. All these different. These are exercise programs. These are all different ways of growing your strength mentally. It never stops. It never stops. You'll never have the answers. You'll never have the conclusion. You'll never have the final thing, because the universe never has a beginning, never has an end. So stop trying to find that. You're frustrating your own development, your own growth, your own experience. You're compromising it with your own ideas or others that you've integrated that are incorrect or frustrating. Don't force your understanding. This is unbelievable. This is the next line. Don't force your understanding to walk on all fours by imagining you're something that you're not. I cannot believe that is the first statement I read as I came back. That's exactly what I just said. Do not force your understanding to walk on all fours by imagining you're something that you're not. That's when you make your spirituality walk on all fours, when you make it something that you're not. You're materializing it. You're making it walk on all fours. You're making it something that it's not. The tape repeats. The tape repeats because you are repeating it. That's why it keeps repeating. That's why you stay anxious. You're repeating the anxious verses in your mind, which keep you anxious. The verses, the statements, the assumptions. You are the one who binds yourself, who keeps yourself from growing. The only reasonable behavior is to become, be with, be in the moment, to tack with the wind, recognizing and utilizing its power while in its wake, to back slowly from the bear, to recognize and revere its power while in its presence. You see, that's the wise mind. You act one way when the wind is blowing against you. You act another way when the bear is looking at you. That's the wise mind, always revering both situations. You're honoring the wind by tacking and harnessing it. You're honoring the bear by slowly stepping back from it. You're in the flow. You're in the flow. Because if you were in fear of the bear, you would turn and run. You see, you're not in fear. You're in the moment. You're present. You realize the power that you're within. That's an appropriate thing to do. When you're in a boat, hey, I want to go north and the wind is coming from the north. I'm going to have to tack. That's the wise mind. Not denying the wind, working with the wind as it is, even though it's blowing in the opposite direction of where you need to go. Wise mind. Wise mind. This is how, this spurs growth. This burgeons growth. This is how we grow. The only reasonable behaviors, I read that here. This way, the strength of the bear, the power of the wind, the moment of empowerment evoke novelty and facilitate your life rather than consuming or capsizing it. You're welcome for that. Brilliant writing there. Part 2, Principles and Practice 10. We will finish up. I think I got one more after this. Yeah, one more after this. 2 more slides. We're done, guys. We're right on time. Okay. Alan showcases Zen's method of direct pointing to escape abstraction and the stink of Zen. This is the person that walks Zen, but doesn't, that talks Zen, but doesn't walk Zen. You know that kind of person. They're all talk, no walk. Zen unapologetically thrusts the nonverbal suchness, ta-ta-ta, of the world upon us, right? This is the aspect of Zen. Just toss it right on you. Naming classifies and bounds, locking the individual into words and form. The present moment is a nameless reality, unfitting for ideas of time and space. Zen koans cut off speculation, images, futures, and regrets, so to reveal the world as neither one nor many, here nor there, uniform nor differentiated. So good. Essence is pure. Existence is pure. That's that authenticity you get with Zen. Concrete immediacy, like love, the attraction to art, or playfulness of a child. Life is not only in the intangibles, but is intangible itself. Hello. Recognize this so its truth, wonder, and joy can pierce your mental atmosphere like sunlight through clouds. Page 126 and 27. The difficulty of Zen is, of course, to shift one's attention from the abstract to the concrete, from the symbolic self to one's true nature. So long as we merely talk about it, so long as we turn over ideas in our minds about symbol and reality, or keep repeating, I am not my idea of myself, this is still mere abstraction. Zen created the method upaya of direct pointing in order to escape from this vicious circle, in order to thrust the real immediacy, that's that relevancy, to our notice. When reading a difficult book, it is of no help to think, I should concentrate, for one thinks about concentration instead of what the book has to say. Same problem as the sinner thinking they're a sinner. Likewise, in studying or practicing Zen, it is of no help to think about Zen, right? That's the stink of Zen. To remain caught up in the ideas and words about Zen is, as the old masters say, to stink of Zen. For this reason, the masters talk about Zen as little as possible and throw its concrete reality straight at us. That's that raw, you're going to get it. That's that merciless aspect of nature. Nature is fearless and will deliver to you consequences without ever apologizing. Same as Zen. This reality is the suchness, tatata, of our natural nonverbal world. If we see this just as it is, there is nothing good, nothing bad, nothing inherently long or short, nothing subjective and nothing objective. See, you're not caught. You're able to see all these things for what they are without finite absolutes. There is no symbolic self to be forgotten and no need for any idea of concrete reality to be remembered. And finally, last slide, principles and practice 11. Principles and practice. The nameless is the origin of heaven and earth. Naming, spell casting, is the mother of 10,000 things. You see, the world of suchness is void and empty because it teases the mind out of thought, dumbfounding the chatter of definitions so that there is nothing left to be said. Brilliant. Yet it is obvious that we are not confronted with literal nothingness. It is true that, when impressed, every attempt to catch hold of our world leaves us empty-handed, and furthermore, when we try to be sure at least of ourselves, the knowing, catching subjects, we disappear. We cannot find any self apart from the mind. We cannot find any mind apart from those very experiences which the mind, now vanished, was trying to grasp. It truly is a tragedy, isn't it? In many ways, life is a tragedy. It's beautiful. It is a beautiful tragedy. Only when you have no thing in your mind and no mind in things are you vacant and spiritual. That's so beautiful. Empty and marvelous. The bowl is empty so that it can be filled. Finally, page 132, our last page for the night. The marvel can only be described as the peculiar sensation of freedom in action, which arises when the world is no longer felt to be some sort of obstacle standing over against one. This is not freedom in the crude sense of kicking over traces and behaving in wild caprice. It is the discovery of freedom in the most ordinary tasks. For when the sense of subjective isolation vanishes, the world is no longer felt as an intractable object. Watts culminates the void and empty yet marvelous portion of his book, describing a suchness that dumbfounds thought, leaving one free in action without the world as obstacle. The nameless is the origin of heaven and earth. Key, nameless, no words, no spells here. Truth, pure, unadulterated truth. The nameless is the origin of heaven and earth and embodies wu-wei freedom, where every ordinary task arises spontaneously from the void. This is the allowance. This is the tolerance. This is the willingness. Essentially, enlightenment, therefore, is unimpinged experience of the void. That is one of the most important lines of the night. Essentially, enlightenment, therefore, is unimpinged experience of the void. And how do I keep my experience unimpinged? I do not grasp. I hold to nothing. Can I truly have authentic experience holding to something? Or is authentic experience only found in the dive, the giving yourself to life? Big stuff to think about. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Exactly. I hadn't even read that, and that was a put. Yeah, exactly. That was a put that in your pipe and smoke it. Yes. Watt's final emphasis is that this is no crude omnipotence, but the natural Tao that leaves nothing undone. Exactly. Nothing needs to be fixed. Precisely by doing nothing. Exactly. Leaving us with Zen's ultimate gift, the peculiar sensation of liberation in everyday life, where self and other vanish, and life is lived in a wonder rather than a setting. Brilliant. Let's go to questions. Let's see what you guys got. Great night. Awesome night. Loved it tonight. Loved it. Loved it. Highlight, man. Highlight of my life tonight, man. Tonight was incredible. Tonight was incredible. Let's go to the bottom. I'm going to the bottom. There's too many questions. I'll confuse you guys. I'm at the bottom now. If you ask a question already, just copy and paste it. Paste it again. I'm here for about another 20 minutes or so. You're welcome, Nancy. And I love interacting with you on email. It's great interacting with you on email this week. I enjoyed that. Thank you so much. Yeah, because it numbs you. It numbs you. Now, plant intoxication can help in some instances, and it's not numbing. It's freeing to see clearly and lucidly. But alcohol, you're in trouble. Alcohol will numb you out. Awesome. Totally love it, Redhead. Totally love it, Miss Redhead. Absolutely. Absolutely. Hell yeah. Right there with you, Virgil. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Let's do it, man. Let's lead the awakening, guys. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's awaken ourselves, man. Let's do it. Let's grow together. Dude, you're incredible, Scott. Make no mistake. You're incredible, dude. You're incredible. Here, let's see what you got to say tonight, Stacy. It's great to see you, love. I have a friend whose adult son called complaining of being broke with no job. His dad exclaimed back to him, "Great, now you will have the time to create." I think he went over like a fart in the wind. Funny one, Stacy. Thank you for that. Thank you, Fortune. I'm grateful for you, love. We have Zoom because of you. We all we all owe you a debt of gratitude, Fortune. You invented Zoom. Thank you. You are awesome. Hey, Jay. Thank you, Chuck. You've lifted a big weight from my back as I've been attacked by the church for years ever since I woke up. Man, love it, Jay. I love it, buddy. Love it. And I love your freaking dog. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Glad to be here for you, friend. Glad to do it. Happy to be here. Right on, Esoteric. Love it. Love it. Love it. Yes. Love it, Clueless. I love my freaking chat. My freaking chat people are so on the bomb. Seriously, they are so awesome. Yes, our Zooms are awesome. And if you would like to be a part of Zoom, we have private discussions. So any of you who are new to me or new here, every Friday at 1 o'clock Seattle time zone, we have a private Zoom, and you are welcome to come. It is free right now, at least. It's free. You're welcome to come. And what we do is we just sit together and have a discussion. There's no agenda. I have nothing to teach. I have nothing to say. I am purely there for the capacity of the group. So if you had some questions tonight, or maybe some things confused you, come to Zoom. Come to Zoom. Ask me. You can come to Zoom. You can sit right in the comfort of your own house and be face to face with me on video, and we can have a conversation. I do it every Friday. Every Friday. Free. It's all every Friday. Here we are. Come. All you have to do is shoot me an email. Say, "Hey, Chuck, I would love to attend Zoom. Can you send me a link?" And I will put you on the Zoom link mailing list. And then every week on Wednesday, I send an invitation that has a clickable link. You can click into the Zoom meeting with the passcode, and you can come. And if you're just a little more timid, maybe you're more shy and you don't want to be on video, that's fine. You can be black. You don't have to show yourself. And you don't have to be on time, which is great for all us artists, right? So if you show up late, or if you can't be there till an hour in, it doesn't matter. You can come and go as you want. If you have an appointment and you show up and you're there and having a good time and like you have to leave, there's no obligation to stay, to come, go, none of that stuff. Okay, none. It is totally a free space. So just shoot me an email, contact Chuck Jr. at yahoo.com, and I'll put you on the list and I'll send you an invite and you can attend. It's a family of people that care about one another, and all we want to do is simply grow. And we grow from sharing with one another and being with one another and showing empathy to one another. Here it is right here. Thank you, Stacy. You are on it. That's it. Contact Chuck Jr. at yahoo.com if you would like to come. Would love to have you there. Would love to have you there. Here's my email. You got it right here. Spiritual Ascension. There's my email right there. See it? There's my email right there. Contact Chuck Jr. You can come. Feel free to come. You're welcome to come. And you can show up to the Zoom and never say a word. We have people that have come to every single Zoom. We've been doing it for months now, and they've never said a word, and their screen has always been black. It's fine. You just want to hear an efficacious conversation. You want to hear some people talk about how they've healed themselves of cancer. You want to talk to some people, or you want to hear some people talk about what it was like to go through the Great Awakening. This is the kind of thing we talk about. Happy to do it. Yeah, rewatch it. Tonight's a good night. Tonight's a good night. Okay. Who's Kurt? We need to get both Chuck and Kurt together. Who's Kurt? Don't know who that is. Okay. There are, but you see, they always return to the water, don't they, Bill? You see, they always return to the water. And make sure you remember it's all metaphor. So try not to hold metaphors to exact science. You want to hold a metaphor, or you want to see it in the light of the light that it's pointing towards, sort of like a lens. Think of a metaphor as a lens, and you simply put your eye up to it. And as you look through the lens, you'll see a different world. And that's the whole point of a metaphor, to show you a world that is unavailable to you without that symbol. And then once the symbol is there to show it to you, then you can know it without the symbol. You see, but you have to see these things, and they're all in the mind. Yeah, so the Zoom will eventually be behind the paywall, but we are going to develop a special system so that people who can't afford to be a part of it will be able to be sponsored. So everyone can go. I don't want to hear any excuses about, people not being able to go, and I'm locking people out because I'm charging. We're going to have a plan. But you have to understand, something has to sustain this. There are many people that are working to bring this product to you. And so there has to be a money flow to sustain this. And I promise you, as soon as I have independent wealth, I won't ask that, and I will be completely free. But until then, I have to support myself, guys. I spend 80 hours a week on this. You can join the Zoom right here. Oh, that's the Discord. Sorry, I clicked the wrong one. Here's the Zoom meeting. It's Stacy here. It's Stacy's post. If you want to join the Zoom. If you want to join the Zoom. Here, okay, so moving on. I wonder if Alan was so in his head that the alcohol was what he turned to over and over to shut it down. Yeah, and see, the discipline of Zen is to not be in the head. The discipline of Zen is to be in the moment, to be in the now. And I don't know if Alan maybe had some really bad demons in his head, just old events that had really harmed him. Maybe he was abused as a child. I don't know. But there might have been aspects that just he wasn't ever able to get past. And there's no blame. I mean, it's nothing but compassion for him and wishing that he could have gotten past those things. But clearly, some of these aspects of Zen hadn't penetrated or something, because Zen is liberation. It's liberation from your mind. It's liberation from your own ideas and from your own self-consumption. And one of the key players in a person who takes their life, or a person who dilutes themselves with drugs to the point where they're practically dead, right, is denial, numbingness, not being present. And that's not the way of Zen. Zen really teaches the importance of being in the now and being present and not being taken by the mind. So it's really tragic, man. I have no blame for Alan. He has woken many people, but it's still sad how it all ended. Poor guy has 3 times. Metzinger. Gotcha. Yeah, but they come back out, don't they? The kingfisher dives underwater. There are even certain types of seagulls in the ocean that actually dive 20, 30 feet down. But they always come back. That's the picture of the fleet. The fleet jumps out of the heat. So he's out of the heat. He's safe. All good. But then he falls right back into it. falls, or she, whatever. The flea falls right back in the pan, right back in the heat. And that's the illustration is attempting to show you there. You always come back to reality. Happy to set it up. I'm happy to do it. Happy to do it. Okay. Yeah, metaphor. Metaphor. You ought to look that up. Look up the mermaid swimming in the wishing well. Joe talks about that with a little girl who drops her golden ball into the well, and a frog in the well makes a deal that if he saves her, or if she saves him, he'll give the ball back. And there are some aspects of saving, like in order to save him, she's going to have to keep him as a friend. So, sorry, I jumped ahead of the story. So she says she'll save the frog. So the frog goes and gets the ball and brings the ball. And then there are stipulations that go along with it. I'm screwing this thing up because I don't know the whole story, but there are stipulations that go along with it. And so when she brings her ball home to the house, the frog comes along because she agrees to raise the frog. And so there's all this stuff that goes along with making a deal with the devil, essentially. And so this happens inside the well, and the metaphor is the person who has given away their art, who has given away their love and joy. And if they bring that back through deals and means, it will come back to eat them. Whereas if they attract it back through their artistic love and heart, it will become, and they will become the person that they are always meant to be. But if you give yourself away, that's when there's no return. You'll never become what you were meant to be because you're living someone else's reality. Here we go. Alan Watts is equivalent of a rock star with all the demands on him from others. It may well have taken its toll. True, that too. That could have been possible too. So the band is going to happen when I get a kit, and I need to do that on my own in practice. And then I need to be able to release some recordings of my work so everybody knows if I'm good or not. So what I need to do is just show my style and skill, and then that will attract the band. And I can't do that until I start practicing again. And I, quite frankly, at this point, don't know when that will happen because I need to get a kit, and I need the time to practice. And so right now is not the time. It was a bit premature, but we're going to get there. I have people who are wanting to do it. I have people that want to be in the band, but I am suspending it because I can't put my full attention to it. But when I can put my full attention to it and I can actually record some music and release it to you guys so you guys know my skill set, then we can get rolling. That's the situation with the band. Hi, Clueless. The old systems must be torn down by the jester so we can build a new, better system. Bam. Bam. That's what's happening. That's what's happening, in my opinion. That's what's happening. Okay, guys, are we about done? You got any more questions? There's no caps. I'm thinking you guys are probably pretty spent. I'm pretty spent. Happy to keep going, though, if you got some questions. New comments. I'm right at the bottom with you. I'm reading Powerful, Thundercloud, Giant Locus, whatever that is, Lucopo 533. They need to know your profile name. Oh, yeah. Here. Okay, here. Are USA here? Are USA and Iran both controlled to create this war and chaos in order to implement their new world disorder? Okay, so what you're seeing right now, Jonah, in my opinion, and I could be completely wrong, friend, and you're welcome to disagree with me, okay? So I'm not the kind of guy that's like everyone has to think like me, all right? So in my opinion, what is happening is the removal of the old system that has always ruled the world. That's what you're seeing happening. How that's going to happen finally, how that is done, all the mechanics of that, I'm not going to comment on because that's all conjecture because nobody knows the whole story because you couldn't know. So in my opinion, the wars you're seeing, the disagreements, the unhappiness between nations is the plan or the change that is underway for we, the human species, to basically determine our future through our awareness. And we have to hold up our end of the deal because we have to become aware. If not enough of the public awakens, and if too many people are still asleep and believing the lies, we won't transcend. We all go together, right? And so the ignorant ones either die off or we don't transcend, right? Because we transcend as a collective. That's why what we're doing is so important. We have to hold up our end of the deal. And because we're in a nature world, And, you know, it's an unfolding process of chance happening, right? I mean, there's meaning the point I'm saying in that is we are in a world of variance, a world of wonder, okay? And we have to stay with that wonder, stay with that growing essence, right? And so we've been on a dead planet, meaning it's been captured by parasites. We haven't been growing. And that's one of the reasons why we were moving to our destruction. Now we're growing because awareness is coming in. That's all part of the, you know, the pleroma and the change of the trajectory of the earth in comparison to the pleroma. Okay. We are in the midst of realizing massive change right now because of the impact, the import of information that's coming to us. And our end of the deal is awakening. We have to awaken. Nature's going to provide the setting for us to awaken, which is happening, and we are awakening. But we must follow through. If we don't follow through, then the human species will collapse. Right? You save yourself. The human species saves itself. There's no plan coming in. It's like, okay, everybody, we're going to get everybody together, and we're going to carry you guys to the sandbox, and we're going to show you guys how to dig, and you guys are going to be okay. We're going to save you. That is not how an awakening happens. That is not how an awakening happens. Each person awakens themselves. They do the work. They do the work, and it is work, and it is painful, and it will cost you. That's what will awaken the society. Okay? So we are in the process of that. And our role, our job is to awaken. And the events you see unfolding are just that. Your job is to awaken, not track the events. Your job is to awaken. You understand that? If you try and track the events, you're going to get caught up in the events and you won't awaken because you'll be distracted. And you'll be worried about the events and whether that bomb was right or not, what country should be winning, what country should be losing, who the president is, who's the president controlling. You're caught. There's no awakening there. None. There's no awakening in following the events. There's no awakening in being caught up in the riffraff. None. So if we are going to awaken, if we're going to transcend, guess what? You have to let go. You have to do the work. You have to do the kinds of things like what we do every Saturday and every Zoom meeting, which is the hard work of consciousness expansion, meaning release. Consciousness expansion is essentially easy, but the hard work is release. That's the hard work. And that's what we're doing. Yes. Happy to talk to him. Yeah. See you later, Shan. Let's wrap it up, guys. Let's wrap it up. Thank you. It's a long night. It's been a long night. We've been at this for 3 hours and 47 minutes, including the lecture. Time to roll it out. Thank you guys so much. Yes, that is your job. Awaken, breathe, presence awareness. You got it. Namaste, Michael. Heck yeah, buddy. Heck yeah. Thank you, Miss Redhead. Love you guys. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys next week. There's not any post-loot tonight, so when I close it, we're closed. Anything else? Good night. Namaste. Good night. You're welcome, 9mm. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being here, guys. Love you guys. I'll see you next time. We're going to check out and call it a night. Thank you for being here. We'll be here next week. We'll continue the intensity. It's going to keep going. I love it. And I'll see everybody in Zoom on Friday next week at 1 o'clock. If you want to go, shoot me an email. See you then. Peace. Peace.